It's gonna start the video here in a sec. There we go. Okay, stream's up. Start recording. Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Blind Rage Podcast with your hosts, Mike and Nick, based off of gaming news, CDL news, as well as real-world events. In today's video, we are discussing, or today's podcast, rather, we are discussing how we became the comp duo. Me and Nick here, how we became the duo in competitive Call of Duty and like league play, in wagers, GBs, stuff like that, and how that all arisen and that type of aspect. But furthermore, we need to touch on a few topics before we get into the meat and potatoes of everything. We need to discuss a few topics ahead of time because in the last podcast, even during the stream as well as we received a few comments referring to how Nick is legally blind, and if he's blind, how can he play video games and how can he be a beast? That's mainly on his side, but just to briefly discuss that before he goes into it, he's legally blind, not fully blind, so he can still see. But without further ado, Nick, let's get your actual description on that so you can kind of discuss that, and then we can actually get into the main topics here.
Alrighty, guys. So, y'all know the vibes here. We're gonna go ahead and, you guys know me. I am a huge Dr. Pepper fan, so we're gonna go ahead and start a long-standing tradition. We're gonna go ahead and start it here. We're gonna start it open. We're gonna go ahead and crack open a nice cold one. And we got a little bit messy on that one, but it's for the first time. You know what I mean? We had to get aggressive with it, guys, all right? But yeah, as Mike said, there was a couple things I did forget to discuss, talking about my disability and stuff like that. So like I did mention in the last one, I do have Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. So that basically made my optic nerve damaged, caused like a lack of blood flow, stuff like that. So it basically made it to where, my optic nerve, instead of being, a pinkish red where you can clearly see the blood flowing through, it was more of a white. And you could tell there was a lack of blood flow. You could tell it was damaged. They looked on there and they seen. So basically, to describe how I actually see, it's kind of like looking through a shower glass door or like through tempered glass. So like you can see everything, but it's just really blurry. Everything's distorted. It looks like you're trying to look at someone's face who has been censored on television or something like that. Like you're looking at it, but it's just, you can't make out any facial features. Like right now, I'm looking at the screen. I wouldn't be able to tell. Obviously, I know what Mike looks like, but I wouldn't be able to tell like eye color or if he has glasses on,
Like details,
or whatever. Yeah, so I wouldn't be able to make out any of those kind of things. Obviously, I did kind of talk about how close I sit to the screen, stuff like that. And for those of you guys who can see back here, you boys, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is still loaded up on the PS5. Me and Mike's gonna be playing that at some point still in the future. We're still vibing, playing league play, doing our thing. But yeah, as
Give me one moment, chat. Seems to have experienced some technical difficulties, so we should have that back to you in one moment. I apologize for the inconvenience, guys.
I don't know if it's good to go. It'll be good. All right.
Once again, guys, my apologies. Everybody in the podcast that's uploaded later, we're probably not gonna be able to edit that out. However, we're back at it. I apologize once again for the inconvenience for that 2 to 3 minute period. However, we're back and we're good to go. So let's continue on what we're saying. What were you saying, Nick? Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, like I was saying, it's basically like if you're looking at somebody on TV and if they've been censored or they are being blurred out, it's really hard to see, just trying to look through something like that. So imagine if that's how you were able to see all the time. You can imagine how that's really frustrating. You're kind of constantly straining your eyes and trying to be able to see, and it's a real struggle. It really is.
Is it kind of like cataracts, but a little bit like, obviously it'd be a little bit more severe, but is it similar in cataracts where it's like a white like frost, or is it more just everything's blurry? It doesn't have like a white frost to it.
I wouldn't say it's like a white frost, but I'd say it's really like I see everything, but it's almost like everything's ran together.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I look down a set of stairs, it kind of just looks like a ramp down to me. Like it's hard to distinguish the difference of the stairs going down. Like I can't, like, it to me just looks like it's straight down.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's that. But like I was saying before, this cord's kind of like a little too short for me to actually get over there and show you guys. But I mean, I'm basically like, I kid you not, right up on the screen, guys. Like
his
touching...
nose is big. Like if you ever tune into a stream, YouTube/Blind Nick, if you ever tune into a stream, he basically has his nose like pressing up against it, which is it looks kind of cool. It's like kind of hilarious, like not in like a bullying way, but it is kind of hilarious because his nose is just like pecking the screen.
Yeah. No, what's hilarious is like people come into the chat, they see me doing that, and they still think I'm faking it. That's the funny part.
Like if anything, you'd be making your eyes worse if you're doing that. So it's kind of counterintuitive if you were, not legally blind.
Yeah, because that's like when I first lost my sight, my dad would always tell me, get away from the TV, boy, you're going to go blind. It's like, Dad, if I back up, I literally can't see it. Like, I'm already blind, apparently.
With all that being said, is there anything else you would like to touch on before we get into our main topic?
I think that's pretty much it. If I'm sure they'll remind us in the comments if there's anything we still haven't touched on or if we've missed anything. I'm sure they'll let us know. But as far as everything we wanted to talk about that we had missed in the last one, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Would you like to do the honors of unveiling the main part of the podcast today? Obviously, it's in the title. However, it's we kind of want to have like a segue into it. So.
Yeah. So you guys know how it is when you're out there, you're playing Call of Duty, you're just searching, but you don't have a squad, right? Like you're solo searching, you're just doing your thing, and then you find that guy, and you're like, "Yo, this is my guy right here." Like, he's a slammer, he's got a damn good shot. Like, you know what I mean? He's calling out, he's doing his thing. Like, hey, I respect it. And then before you know it, you guys are playing together all the time. Like, forget about all the other teammates. Like, y'all become a duo. You know what I mean? And like the title says, this is all about the duo, guys. About how we met, how it happened, how it all came about, the teams that we kind of formed, and all around just how everything was for us. Obviously, that's why we got the Black Ops 4 in the background. Shout out to it. Just it was a very crazy time for me, I'd say, because back then, a lot of the people I was playing the game with kind of were getting out of Call of Duty. It wasn't really popping as much. Like, my boys had already grinded out, and this was, keep in mind, this was like 2019. This was year 2, or almost year 2 of Black Ops 4 and chill, I guess, if you want to say that. And so we would get on there, freaking, me, Dustin, and Darren, shout out to Boss, aka Next Blue. Everybody who knows him, they know him. But basically, we grinded out Dark Matter. We kind of did like a little race, everything like that. And then, one thing led to another. And once we got Dark Matter, it was like, dude, this game's not really that fun. We weren't really enjoying pubs that much. So I kind of got into doing the league play, kind of started playing more Blackout, just genuinely getting away from the multiplayer. So, after a lot of solo searching and a lot of 50 bombs, like 50 and 10, fucking 45 and 6, all kinds of crazy gameplays, I ran across Mike, and Mike will have to correct me here. I can't remember fully if it was a 3 or a 4-man he was running in. But I linked up with his boys, and, I'll let Mike kind of tell it from his side from there. But it was all overall, it was just a crazy experience for me, from going from a solo player all the time to having a full 5-stack.
Yeah, without, like, there's a few things that I want to touch on to begin with, as well as we kind of want to go back and forth of, like, our first impressions of each other and, like, what we actually thought about each other, and have, like, a Q&A section kind of in the, like, inside of the podcast. But like I said before, guys, we have segued in the previous podcast, actually, episode 1, we segued in how we kind of met and, like, how we became, like, I wouldn't say iconic because, unfortunately, we're not well known in the community, but we went from 0 to 100 very quickly. We've been through we've had our hardships between each other. We've had arguments, and, like, we've parted our ways several times, and not in a relationship way. However, we still end up always back together, and we always end up really forgetting about the bullshit that we went through the previous time. And it's something that it's almost like we can't really stay separated when it comes to the COD scene, because it works until he gets the mastery camo and I'm bored, and then it's like, well, I want to grind league play, I want to grind some wagers, and I don't have anybody to play with. So, without further ado, I also have a list, but that's gonna the iPad's gonna brighten up my face, so we'll get into that in a little bit later. Guys, you've heard in the first podcast how I met Nick. I actually forgot, like, this is something that Nick touched on, but I actually forgot that I was in a 3-man. I completely forgot all about that.
Yeah.
I have an idea of some of the boys that I was with, but I don't remember exactly who. I remember some of the people in the 5-man that we played with, but I don't remember who was the original 3. But the first
I don't even think it was those guys that we played with mostly.
No,
I don't even think it was
other people. Yeah. I think it was me and a couple of my boys that we were just like. I think it was some of the people I played Blackout with. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure though. It could be a couple other people. I'm not really sure. Like I said, so. Like, this is kind of foggy. This has been almost 4 years ago, so you're going to have to cut me some slack. But, so how I got into it is, not late. I'd say early to mid 2019, I got into the league play scene because you guys have heard before, I played Blackout for almost an entire year before I played multiplayer or anything, and I got bored of all that, right? So I came into league play, my boy introduced it to me, and then he stopped playing, and then, I was like, okay, I want to grind this because this is something that I enjoy. In other games, or even in COD, I only enjoy kills. I don't really enjoy winning. But whenever I have incentive to win, then the kills is really cool, but hitting kills and winning is where it's at, So, I remember it was an Arsenal S&D, and, it was an Arsenal S&D, and we got linked up with your boy over here, Nick, and at first, this is kind of later on after this first map, but he was, talking to his stream and all that. I believe he was streaming, I could be wrong, but, he was talking to his stream, having a good time, and one of the first rounds, I'm not sure exactly what round it was, but we were on offense on Arsenal S&D, like I said, and he gets a first blood with the Paladin. And you guys know that this boy's a beast with the sniper because, he was in a trick shot tournament when he had his vision, So, I was like, okay, that's good. We got first pick. I'm trying to be an IGL. Back in the day, I didn't know what that was. But, I was trying to be an IGL because the people that I was with, they weren't bad players, but they didn't really have any game sense. And I was trying to build that with myself and them, And, I believe I get a pick, or I get a pick and die, something like that. But somehow I end up spectating Nick. And at first I was like, I wasn't really paying attention. I was trying to give my teammates info because I was dead, and I can play off of a random. If they're not calling out, I can call out for them, And this man over here jumps up on statue on Arsenal, and he didn't head glitch it. No, he stood on top of it. So, there's the base, and then it goes in and up. So he was standing on that's the second ledge, the hop up, basically. and he's peeking the steps, like down Arsenal, or down the steps, and he gets a pick. And I was like, okay, that's a nice shot. You know, didn't think anything of it. And then, you know, a couple seconds later, this man, he doesn't hard scope lobby. No, he just straight up quick scopes. Bam, dead. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, and then I believe one of our teammates die, and he was the last alive. It's a 1v1. And, you know, him with his Mozu, he just went pop, 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 and he dropped him, and that was the round.
Not that good.
And, you know, at the time, you know, I didn't really know what the difference between good and bad. Like, I knew, like, if you did good, you did good. But I could sense in Nick that this was a player that was way better than me at the time, 100% better than me, because I had way less experience, you know. And I was like, if I can, I want this kid on my team. Like, I want to link up with this kid, you know, even if he doesn't use his mic, which I'm pretty sure he was to begin with, but... You know, sometimes you're not in game chat, so even regardless of what happens, you know, it happens. So I seen that happened. I was like, I want to play with this kid. So I tried, like, you know, trying to, like, put up my foot in the door, kind of, you know, trying to link up with him and see if he'd be willing to. And he's like, yeah, for sure. And then that night, we pretty much played for, like, 12 hours, I'm pretty sure. You know?
Yeah.
And a couple
Something
things,
crazy like that.
Like, we grinded so hard, you know, we kept grinding up the ladders, and every time we got S&D... We would outshine our randoms or our teammates and our randoms because we were S&D kids. You know, I've dropped so many 20 bombs on S&D. You know, Nick has himself. You know, and we were the duo. Like me and him. If we got an S&D, even if we had horrible teammates, we could win. You know, either he would run the sniper or he would run the SOG. And back in the day, I didn't run an AR, as you guys know me today as an AR. I ran a SOG. And not only did I run a SOG on 14 cents. So you guys know how that goes. You know, I can just snap on the kids. And back in the day, whenever I did play on 14, it didn't look like 14. It looked like I played on like 6 or like 10. You could correct me if I'm wrong from spectating me, but I'm pretty sure you didn't realize that I was on 14 for quite a while. I was like Darren almost, but Darren's a little bit more like he shows off a little bit with his sense. But that's beside the point, you know. And I just kept noticing every time we get S&D, like, as long as we stay up, we pretty much won the round, you know? And we started formulating a 5-stack. I remember we had J-Pen, we had Boston's Assassin, I believe, and we had, I remember his name, but I can't remember his name now. You know who I'm talking about, the kid that was talking behind your back, correct? I forget his name.
Shells, right?
Shells, yes, Shell Smoke. And we started linking up with them. Like, we started making a 5-man. We grinded every day. And then, like, one of them would drop. And then we found Volunteer Hitman, which, you know, somehow he got the kills that he got. And he clutched us up. He clutched up many rounds for us.
Bot, bro.
But he was horrible. Like, he would not use the Pro League setups. He'd sit in the corner with a thermal swordfish. You know, which...
Nah, bro. Perfect example of what this guy was. This guy was, like... He was one of a dying breed because he was like a dad who would come home and casually play a few games and like, oh, you know, whatever, like I'll just get some kills. And it was crazy because I'm pretty sure it was a 3 times that he used.
Oh yeah,
it
was a 2 to 4 hybrid. Like you would zoom in and out with a little triangle.
Dude, and he would use this thing and he would get so many like insanely lucky like hip fire kills, get all kinds of god
or he'd like hip fire him all down to one shot and then ADS and kill him, or like they would just drop right in front of him, like if you're on pipes on frequency and he just drop like he would be in the corner and they just drop pipes or drop ladders right in front of him and pop, easy kill.
Yeah, like dude, I'm talking about we would make up, me and Mike back then would try to do something dumb, make a bot play, and we would die, leave him in like a 1v3. This man clutches it because they just all chowed him and he somehow wins it. It was mind-blowing. Yeah. Like, the amount of times that he clutched up something when you would have never thought that man...
like, they would be a clutchable situation, but it's like, if you look at him, you would be like, this is not clutchable for this dude.
Yeah, you're like, there's no way he's doing this. And then he would just pull it off somehow. Like,
and
every time.
Thing I would like to give credit to him, although he wasn't the best player, like, he did clutch up for us, and can't really say how. But although he did that, he also, like, especially me, because back in the day, like, as the title of the podcast, like, you know, hints, like, the title, like, the name, Blind Rage, obviously, I was a rage monster, you know, I got really loud and, like, obnoxious, and I was mad if we were losing, And if I lost full, those would be like, just chill out. We got this. Just regain. We got the next round. We got the next round. We got the next hill. We got the next whatever. Like, we can come back from this. And a lot of the times, like, we did. And it wasn't just because, like, we just decided to do good or anything like that. Because once I started chilling out and I'm like, okay, we got this. We can pull this back. We did. Because, once you regain, once you're done losing full, you win.
And I swear, I don't know how, Mike, but there's so many games where it's like everyone else on our team is like, nah, it's chalked, it's over. Like, you have Shells and like certain people just sit in the back of the map, not even caring.
And I have more about him later on in the podcast, but yeah, he would chalk it from literally the first hill. Like, first hill, dude, first round, first whatever,
And it was so crazy because it's like, it'd be like 2:45 to like 2:30. I'll like grapple into the hill, shot punch one, grab slam two more, like solo break the hill,
and then someone gets the trades and you get a whole 5 down.
Yeah, and then dude, it's like before you know it, we won the damn game. Like me and you solo pushed hill. Yeah. And then we would go back and look at it and be like, bruh, why was me and Mike the only people there? Like, where's everybody else at?
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, like Shells all the way in the back of the map. Hitman was posted up trying to watch over us, which, I give him credit for even trying, but he should have pushed in.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, games like that, we were truly never out because of me using that grapple song, bro. I swear.
I want to get into that here in a second as well. But also, like, in the beginning of League play, I just played for kills because that's how I was. I didn't really play objective. And once I came back to it and then I kind of met Nick and started doing that, we did that. And once again, like I said, we were the sub duo. So he was a BZ and I was his simp, And he would be the entry. He would be the grapple sog, He would entry. He would get a pick, get 2 picks, play his life, get a pick, get 2 picks, die, and then I would be there trading out the first kid if he's one shot. Either I would be trading him out, or I'd be trading out the 4th or 5th kid, or even like me and him would just between the two of us kill the whole wave of the lobby and just like start capping hill, and then everybody else flooded in. But our randoms, or not even our randoms, but our 5-man, the rest of them, don't get me wrong, some of them were decent players, like J-Pan wasn't horrible, and Boston's Assassin wasn't horrible, but like they would be Shells would be complaining about OBJ time whenever I would have twice as many kills as him, you would have twice as many kills as him, we would have more OBJ time than him. And then all 3 of them combined didn't have as much OBJ time as one of us. Like, and I'm not trying to be egotistical because, once you start believing you're really good, like you become, you gain an ego, and I can't say that doesn't happen. It happens to me a lot. But, without us, we wouldn't be anywhere, and we probably wouldn't even be in this podcast today because we didn't have those experiences. That being said, like I said, I have a list of things that I would like kind of go back and forth of. Also, like I said, I want to go through our first impressions and, like, what we thought and what was being said behind each other's back, because that did happen with our team. Not just one person, but a few people were saying how one of us weren't good or one of us were coming up excuses, even though when we were both weren't on and we would 4-man, we would lose almost every game because only one person would be doing something out of the 4 people that were on the team. But like I said, without further ado, why don't you tell me, like, your first impressions of me and first impressions of, like, the 5-stack that we originally created and how we upgraded it and then eventually quit and did our own thing?
Well, initially, I'll say, like, at first, when I met you guys, I didn't really know a whole lot about you guys. I just knew, like, okay, cool, like, there's a team, they're looking for somebody, like, that's a bet, let's do it. And because when I first was talking to you and everything, you were like, you were chill. You weren't like really doing a whole lot of raging. Like the first game when I played with you, I was like, okay, this guy's chill. He's doing his thing. But then I remember the very next game after we linked up, I kid you not, guys, this man died. He rushed mid with the sub.
What was it? What was it? S&D?
It was Gridlock S&D.
Oh.
You ran. I remember you ran up mid and you were gonna try to catch a timing on the kids through gold. Like you were gonna try to hit a flank, and the kid was just like sitting top window, just pre-aiming you, waiting with an ICR. And I remember this because as soon as Mike died, literally as soon as he died, he screamed, I kid you not, for maybe 10 seconds straight in my eardrum, couldn't hear a damn thing, and I was like, yo, what the fuck is this? Like, what is going on, bro? Like, I was like, I had no clue this man was like an insane rage monster, like about to blow my eardrum out. I was literally planning the bomb on what's the bomb over by showers? A, right?
Tree, yeah. I think it's A. Yeah, it's A and B because it's the same as control, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. So I was planting the bomb right there. Mike hit mid, gets first blooded. He was so pissed. He screamed, dude. He literally screamed the whole time. Then I turned around. I went to go run away. Didn't even hear the guy run right up on me and just unload on me full blown. I was like, bro, what was that? Like, what happened? I thought, bro, I thought the most insane thing happened. He was like, bro, I ran up mid and this kid was just sitting in the freaking window waiting on me. I was like, bro, really? Like, that's how you died and you got that pissed? Like, are you sure? Like, you didn't just get like bullshitted, or like, you know, someone didn't like no scope you through the wall, or I'm thinking like something insane happened. Like, no, just I died.
By the way, your memory is impeccable because I didn't even remember that. Like, I can believe it happened 100% because I could probably, like, if you show me the clip, I wouldn't say that it's wrong, and I do believe you, but I don't even remember. That's why, like, you're such a great co-host or like host. Like, we have both equal like importance, but like your memory is quite impeccable because you won't like this podcast won't have half the things it does without you.
Well, dude, because I'm telling you, man, like, I remember little things like that because they stick with me. Like, when you first started losing your mind, I was like, bro, at first I was like, I don't even know if I want to team with these guys. Like, oh my God. Like, I was like, after I died there, I was like, bro, should I just leave? Like, should I even like be teaming with these guys? Like, are all these guys this crazy? Like, I had no clue, but obviously I just liked that Mike was using his microphone a good amount. Like, he was actually calling out, communicating. Like, I had nobody doing that. Even every time I would solo queue for so many months, it's like I'd barely ever get kids with mics, and then when they did, it's like they didn't know what a freaking call out was. They didn't even know anything about competitive. It's like you're a pub kid just trying to freaking play, just like the Gregorius kid that we played with. Freaking, that's the definition of a pub kid right there. He's literally, it's round one, guys. I'm not even trolling you,
mind you. Not even control S&D.
Yeah, round one on an S&D. He's like, all right, guys, okay, I know I'm gonna say this wrong, but
just give him context of what it's actually called first. Like, just disclaimer, guys. It's not called what he's calling it, but it's actually called.
It is not called Cosmic Device. It is called ComSec Device. Okay, and it was a thing. For those of you who don't know, it's something you can use to help you get your streaks quicker.
It gives you like an extra score bonus for every kill, basically. Like, it reduces the level that you. It reduces the amount of points you need for each score streak, and it scales up with the score streak as well. It's not like hardline.
It's kind of like hardline for those of you who played older Call of Duties. But anyways, he's like, "Oh, I have Cosmic Device. Let me get the bomb." I'm like, "Okay, bro. It's round one. The fuck are you talking about?" First of all, second of all, we never even practiced with him having the bomb. The whole time that we played, literally, like Mike said, when we played for 12 hours, we played for so many hours. Every game we played, Mike can tell you, I had bomb.
Yeah, you're always the one that lays it. Yeah.
So, for him to just out of nowhere be like, I have Cosmic, it's like, what? Like, okay, you have Cosmic. First of all, you're worried about getting streaks. Second of all, I don't know why you're worried about streaks on round one.
Too. And streaks on frequency aren't amazing. Like, they're not horrible, but they're not worth that.
It's not worth, like, if you go...
If it's on a controller at hardpoint, yeah, but not on an S&D at all.
And I could maybe understand, like, if he was like, you know, we're 4 rounds in, he's like yo, I'm 100 off, like, let me get the bomb. That's one thing. But it's like, oh, I took off stem shot, so I have Cosmic. It's like, what the hell are you even doing? Like, and then, to make it worse, Mike, just go ahead and let them know, what gun and what sight he
Okay,
used.
the disclaimer and like for the giving the benefit of the doubt, I use the vapor, but when I use the vapor, I shit on everybody. He was using a thermal vapor with a suppressor.
A thermal vapor.
With a suppressor.
Okay, if you just see that load out and you're like, okay, as soon as you die, that's your teammate.
That's a hardcore.
You're like,
That's a hardcore loadout. That's not even a pub's kid.
Yeah.
That's a hardcore pub. Like not
Yeah.
hardcore as in like skill, like hardcore is in the game mode. That's what he plays in pubs right there.
Yeah.
Comsec
And
with
the
a
dude
vapor.
literally would sit here and tell me and Mike, like, oh, dude, this is a high tier play. Like, I have Cosmic. Let me get the streaks. Like, bruh, the guy has no idea. He doesn't even know what callouts are. But he's trying to tell us,
He would
like,
sit in
yo,
the corner
let me
too.
get
That's what he did
bombed.
the entire round. Just sit in the corner.
Yeah, and then it's like the times we did give him bomb, he wouldn't do what me and Mike like to do. For those of you guys who don't know, me and Mike are aggressive. We're hella aggressive. We like to,
Even
take
with the
map
AR,
control.
I'm also aggressive. Like
Yeah.
I pull myself back and like I slow down if I have to catch a timing. But I just use my AR like a sub, to be honest. Like I will have times where it causes me to die and it costs the game. But in most situations, I push up with the AR, and if I'm with Nick, he gets some weak and I trade him out, or I can pull some Octane level plays and just make the AR work point blank. Especially with the shot punch in the recent COD, like in Cold War and on BO4.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think like people don't realize the reason why we push up so aggressively and we take all the map control. Just like I'm Marksman. He'll tell you he's one of the best search and destroy players of all time for a reason. He will tell you, push up, be aggressive, get map control. You sit there and turtle in your spawn, you're going to lose every time.
Map control. That's all it is a giant trap.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 5v5, it's still a trap if you get map control.
Yeah, and you're basically what you're doing is you're doing like a you're eliminating all of the places
variables
they can be,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, they're not here, they're not here, they're not here. So you're like, okay, they're all just trapped now in their back part of their map because they turtled in their base. We pushed up, and especially if I say like, yo, let's freaking fly straight to A. I don't mean like, yo, take your sweet time, get there whenever you can. Like,
No, you're
full
a
send
BC.
it.
Yeah.
Full send it, rush straight to freaking A, get the bomb down, plant that, because half the time what people don't realize, they're going to waste 20 seconds, 30 seconds getting across the map to even rotate. So if we still have 3 up with 10 seconds left, we win that round every time. Like, most of their time is spent closing the gap to even get to us. Then they have to get 3-4 kills in 5 seconds. And if we even have 3 brain cells combined between all 5 of us, we can put it together and be like, hey, just don't challenge and you win the round. Like, that's my point. Like, that's why I say you push up, you get the bomb down, you plant it. Before they're even, rotated back, you have the map control, you have the advantage. Now the clock is on your side instead of you being like, oh, damn. Because if you wait until, the time's running out, not only do they have a pretty good idea of where you're going with the bomb and where you're at on the map, but they also pretty much know, like, okay, time's working against them. They're going to have to plant.
If they don't get it within 5.5 seconds, they can't win the round, and it's obviously 7.5 to defuse.
Yeah, so it's like, dude, so if we play it smart instead of waiting until the last few seconds, like anybody who watches the CDO or the CWO back when it was, that was a thing. Anybody who watches this, they know, like, you watch these teams who wait until the last 20 seconds, last 10 seconds to get the bomb down.
They collapse and just fall apart.
Because it's way too hard to get into a setup because you're trying to force everything to happen, bam, all in the freaking blink of an eye. And it's like, okay, here's where the problem lies. If you push up quickly, you get the bomb down, then you get set up in your position.
They have to collapse on you, and it's you're playing the waiting game. You're forcing the clock against them.
Yeah, and so you're set up, you're ready to go. You basically, now the clock is in your favor. You're setting yourself up for victory.
And that, like, another thing to note, obviously, like, my gunny isn't the best. Like, my reaction time isn't the best, but I definitely think I could be an S&D analyst, and I think you could as well because of the high level plays that we make. Like, yes, we make dumb plays quite often, but we also make high level plays that people only really do in like really, I wouldn't say elo, but like really high brackets, like AMs, challengers, etc.
Well, and I'll say this: I think there's not enough pro players who try to like just commit to something. Like that's why for those of you who don't know, my favorite pro player of all time, outside of Abizi, of course, he's been like the anomaly the last like 3-4 years, I'd say. He's been completely been my boy, but my boy Havoc, he literally, what I have always admired about him and what I've learned so much from him is just commit to a play. Like I've been saying, you get the bomb down, you do this, you freaking, you get out there. If you think of a play and you sit there and you're like, all right, maybe I'm gonna hit the back alley. Nah, maybe I'm gonna hit their courtyard. Like, bro, you keep sitting there and
You
hesitating,
can't
then
go
you're
back and
gonna,
forth. You have to put it has to be pre-decided before the round starts, because if you're
yeah,
not
you're gonna
if,
get caught out.
yeah, if you're not pre-decided and they are, even if like you mix it up and they don't expect it, you're still gonna put yourself at a disadvantage because you spent that extra time, thinking about that. Not only that, and people might think, oh, it's only 3 seconds. That's only 2 seconds. Yes, but if you think about it, it only takes 2 or 3 seconds to overextend. It only takes 2 or 3 seconds to shoulder something, and if you have everything predetermined, it's gonna be executed really well. That's why if you look in, like, for instance, if you look in the CDL with pros and amateurs, a lot of things that separate the two is pros in their scrims. Like, obviously in S&D and all that, if they play, like, best of 11s, they don't want to show their S&D strats because then when they're going to pull it out when it's champs, it's not going to be something new. But, if they have something, they're not going to wait until champs to try it. Like, besides S&D, because there's a few things. They're going to try it in scrims and see if it's work. They're going to keep trying it and see what they have to critique to make it work. And then if you look at challengers, especially pickup team challengers, like, obviously it's not fair comparing them to pros, but pickup teams, they do it as the round's going or, like, a second before the round starts. Like, it has to be predetermined what you're going to do. An example of this is Atlanta FaZe. You guys, anybody in the COD community, you guys know who Pac is. He's an S&D analyst for Atlanta FaZe. And he has a strat on Express on Cold War that works really well as long as it's executed. This is a strat that I've tried to execute myself, but depending on our team, like, I'm not saying any of us are incompetent, we know how to do it, but it's just whenever we get perfect timing, it works, and when we don't, it doesn't.
And that and a lot of times it usually doesn't work for us because, like, we will have it set to where it's like, okay, I'll be like, yo, let's go A, let's full send it. Like, I'm wanting to do that same thing I talk about all the time, fly up to A, get the bomb down, like all this. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yo, let's do this strat. But, like, a lot of times we'll be mixed on, like, okay, are we doing this strat? Are we doing this strat?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, we're just not on the same page a lot of times, so it won't be executed properly. But when it is executed properly, that play can work phenomenally. Like, you'll force them to rotate to they'll hit the B, you go straight to A, like, right after, wrap it out, like, you get set up into your spots, you're golden.
Also, guys, if you're wondering about the actor strat, it's not necessarily important, but it's just an example. Is since champs are already over, so I'm not going to be leaking any information that is going to affect games in the future. So the strat, it's kind of simple, but it's a psychological thing. All you do is, if you're on offense on Express, you triple between, depending on how you want to play it. You either triple or quad stun through. You could go bottom ramps. You go through. You triple or quad stun up top, and then also into their ramp. And then you throw like a nade or two, maybe only one or two, just so it doesn't seem fake. If all four throw both sets, that's kind of like, you can tell it's fake.
Yeah, you're overselling it.
Yeah, you have to, like, blend it in, and then as soon as you do it, as soon as that stun leaves your hand and it's up in the air,
180.
Yeah, you just straight 180, go back up and fly to A. And this can work on both sides. It works more on B to A rather than A to B. But it can work as well. Like, we've done it on A side as well, where we like triple quad stun A and then wrap back to B side. And although they might be set up at B, they're going to be starting to either back up, or they're going to rotate to A, or they're at least going to be holding a cross into A. They're not going to be expecting us to come from our ramp, their ramp, or their cat.
Yeah.
Also, we don't want to kind of like get into topics deeper and deeper, but that's just one of the type of strats we're talking about. Like, it has to be
Yeah.
predetermined. Are we going to do that strat? And it has to be, it has to be used in scrims. So that whenever Nick talks about how, it's like overcommitment, they don't know, or undercommitment, they don't know what they're going to do.
They're just hesitating.
Yeah, you can't hesitate. If that's what separates a lot of really good players from pro players is you have to have ice, you have to know what you're doing. Like, everything has to be predetermined, Like I said in last week's episode, Pro League isn't thinking things on the fly. It's basically a game of Madden where someone makes a play and the enemy team makes a counterplay. And if their counterplays match up, then cool. If their play doesn't match with their counterplay, then the round, it shifts. It's not like, they did this really weird thing. No, it's like they know that's going to happen. One of the rounds, they have to line up the timings of what round they're going to do what. But if you don't mind, let's get back into our main topic before we go down this endless spiral of just talking about the CDL.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hashtag
but yeah,
Dr. Pepper. Hopefully we can get sponsored at one point. Hopefully Bang too, because you guys know, anybody that follows my Twitch or even my YouTube and Twitter sometimes, like, I drink a lot of Bang. I cut back on my caffeine content or intake recently, but there was a point where I was drinking 3 Bangs a day. So, hashtag Bang. Hopefully we can get a sponsor for them. Hopefully Dr. Pepper, because your boy over here loves Dr. Pepper.
Bro, and if anybody who is listening to our voices right now can or has any type of power to make that happen, or at least knows a way to get our foot in the door, that would be greatly appreciated. Because, hey, one step closer to freaking getting that, because, hey, we're already promoting them for free. We're out here letting them know, like, Mike will freaking rep the Bang, I'll rep freaking Dr. Pepper all day long. Like, we'll freaking pimp their damn beverages for sure. So that's, no worries at all. But getting right into it for sure. Outside of that, like, once we kind of realized, like, where we are, or like where we were at the current time, when we were like, all right, we were playing with the people we were playing with, and there were starting to be like people just talking behind each other's back and kind of starting to run their mouth and just say different things. Like, I know some people said some things about me to you behind my back, and vice versa, and stuff like that. But basically we kind of realized, we were like, all right, all this is going on, like, we're just out here trying to game, and everybody else is making this like this is high school. They're making it way too dramatic. Like, we're just trying to team. Like, we realized, okay, these are the people who are putting out the most output. These are the people who are really trying to win and get better as a team. And these are the people who just don't really care. And we tried to, like, weed out the people who didn't care as much and tried to bring in some new people and stuff like that. It never really became what me and Mike wanted it to be.
It was more of a pickup team each week, pretty much.
Yeah. It was like a revolving door of players. It was never really what we wanted it to be, but the point is it was kind of like a situation with London Royal Ravens on this during Cold War. They wanted to win. The London Royal Ravens wanted to win desperately, and they didn't win, but it wasn't because they didn't try. You know what I mean?
It's
Same thing with me and Mike.
They didn't have Team Chem. It was nonstop pickup team after pickup team. Like, each week you had a new player subbing in for them, and like every player that was on that team, like, they were by themselves and together, they were great teams, and great players. But they could have been they could have made it. Well, actually, they made it really close to champs. Or no, I'm thinking wrong team. My apologies. But they were like, they were really good players by themselves. They even brought like challengers in that really deserved to be in the pro scene. But if you're in a pickup team and you're getting new teammates every week, like, although you could be the best player in the world, it doesn't matter if you guys can't build team chem and like sort something out.
Yeah, I mean, that for a fact, because there's so many times where, I mean, hell, not just me and not just you, but both of us in the same game dropping 50+ kills and we lose a hard point. Like,
not just on BO4, but also on Cold War as well, and on MW it's happened.
Yeah, like, you would think, like, okay, like, we're trying our best, like we're picking up new players, like these guys are actually pretty promising when we pick them up, and then it's like we get them on the team, and it's like it's almost like the situation with Optic. Like Optic, their practice was great, they dominated everyone in scrims, then they just couldn't transfer that into the actual, obviously we weren't doing anything on that level, but we would start off, we'd play a few games, we'd be dominating, like the comms would be great, the energy would be unmatched, like everyone would be gassing each other up, it'd be amazing. And then it's like we would have one loss or something like that, and it was just thrown out the window. It's like, yep, pointing fingers, like, oh, this guy
we turned
doesn't
on each
care.
other.
Like,
literally, we just turned on each other.
we would turn on each other so hard in an instance, bro. Like back then, it was crazy. But I'll tell you, like, it wasn't because we didn't try. Like, me and you had so many good games. We tried our best to constantly find like new teammates, because I feel like a famous example, and we plan on getting him on as a guest at some point, Jordan, aka Enzo. We, like I told Mike when we first started playing with him in Cold War, I was like, dude, I like this guy, he's a damn good player. Like, he's not as good as he could be, for sure, he could be way better. His shot,
he wants to learn, he wants to get better. He's like a good,
but
yeah, a good platform to start off of.
It's that mindset that he had. Like, he had the winning mentality. Like, he was even saying, like, he noticed we were all using subs. He was like, yo, I'll pull an AR. I was like, yeah, man, you kind of need to pull an AR. Like, you're playing with a submachine gun, using it like an AR. And I was like, so that whole mentality that he has, obviously we'll touch way more on that and everything once we get into that episode. But it's crazy to me. Like, that's what I look for more than just a guy who is like raw talent, just because at this day and age, I feel like it's not hard to find someone who can shoot their gun straight. I'm more concerned with finding someone who's gonna call out
and like actually knows how to play the game.
Yeah, someone who's gonna just call out, and someone who's gonna be just a well-rounded player. I don't need an absolute god like that's gonna sit there, because at the end of the day, that's not gonna win us the games, because clearly me and you, we were popping off, and that wasn't what was winning us the games. We were just playing way too individually. Like back then, like you had kind of said, you played pretty individual when you were, when me and you had first met. Obviously, we talked about that going from BO4 into MW, but basically we kind of went over everything, and we were like, okay, we talked about it. We were like, Mike was doing his own thing, kind of playing individual. I was overcompensating, trying to do way too much. Felt like I had to try to, not in the sense that I was carrying the team, but I was trying to do way too much objective wise.
Yeah.
And I would end up making myself go like double neg, trying to like just solo push something, because we just like weren't playing as a team.
Like, you were forced to be in that soaking position.
Dude, I was being like a Doug Sensor Martin, if I could, just out there 8-23 with 3 minutes in the hill, like a full
like
blow.
Scrim with Formal when he had 7 kills. Formal's like, 7? 7? Like, 7? That was hilarious. Yeah. I love that clip. I love Formal. That's actually something that I didn't think of until recently, but I kind of want to discuss that here in the future as well.
But yeah,
is there anything else you want to say? Because like, I still want to go over a couple things with how we met and like, how that arose. But is there anything else you want to touch on? Just before everything changes. I just want to make sure. I have a list, so although it's like kind of vague, I want to like just double check and see if there's anything else that I want to think of besides the stuff that I'm thinking off the top of my head. Let me just pull this up. Give me one moment. Oh, actually, this is a very, there's actually some really good, there's a lot of very good, points that I want to make, actually. I guess we can start on BO4, again, like I said, how we met, with the whole spiel that I discussed previously. Also, like with Shells, something that, besides him not being that great of a player, in my opinion, and he would complain to everybody else, he was doing the worst, and he would complain the most, besides him doing that, he was also, like, he was a snake. He would go behind everybody's back and talk shit on them. He would talk
Yep.
shit on me. I don't even know exactly what he said about me, which I'm kind of interested to see. As well as, like, for instance, for you, like, he, personally, I always believed that you were legally blind because I have turned into your stream. But then he was like, oh, well, him being on college Wi-Fi is just an excuse, and he really just sucks, and,
Which
know,
we haven't talked about that. We gotta, like,
yeah,
kind of talk about that here in a minute.
we need to discuss that as well. There's quite a few things that I want to discuss, which is why I made this list in the first place, because it's something that, if I don't, I would forget completely about,
Yeah.
And he would say, how you were just making up the whole blind thing and how you just
That
sucked,
pissed me off.
and how how your college Wi-Fi really, like, oh, you were spectating him and he really wasn't lagging that bad, and like, these are things that I told you just because, like, at the point, like, when I refer to as partners, obviously it's not in a relationship way. It's as in, like, a mutual, like, agreements between us as partners, as we manage accounts. So
Teammates, basically.
Yeah, we're teammates. I manage a lot of his social media things. Not like I'm tooting my own horn, but, like, we're partners in that sense, where he helps me with things and I help him with things, and, like, it's mutual between the two of us. And since he was, like, my duo partner at the point, I'm like, I gotta tell you some stuff. And I told him about that, and I know you kind of, like, bit your tongue. And then I remember what pushed you over the edge. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, and you can discuss this yourself. However, you didn't see someone that was on your mini map, and you were back 18 on control, and you costed the round because you couldn't see the kid, and then he started roasting, and you went ham on him.
Yeah, so let me break this down for everybody.
Nick,
so
before you leave, I'm gonna still be able to hear you once again, but can you hold down the fort with your information before I get back?
Yeah, do your thing. So, yeah, let me break it down for you guys and basically kind of explain. So, to me, what was absolutely crazy was I kind of had no idea. Like, the guy that Mike's referring to, our teammate Shells, he never came out and told me anything about this. Like, he never told me, like, he had a problem with me having vision problems or my internet problems, because I was on college Wi-Fi, and that college Wi-Fi that I was on was, like, literally worse than a hotspot. Like, I kid you guys not. Like, I was on less than a megabyte half the time. I was on, like, actual kilobytes per second, and it was horrible. I couldn't even half the time, like, I could not even, like, make a proper, like, I would do a grapple spot. I would for those of you who don't know, I'll explain it. I would basically grapple to a certain area, and then you press X to stop the grapple, and then you would use the momentum to, like, kind of fly to a certain area. So I couldn't even successfully do things like that because of how delayed and how bad the lag and just in general the internet was just horrible. And it made everything worse because my dorm that I was in was, every dorm was supposed to have 10 gigabytes of internet, but my dorm only had 1 gig to share between, however many of us there was. It was like 80 something rooms and 2 people in a room. So, almost 200 people. It was ridiculous, all on the internet. And basically we did all this, and we would play the game, and I would have certain moments where it's like I wouldn't get a kill that I should, where I wouldn't pick up a trade that clearly I would have any day of the week if I'm just not lagging my ass off. But because he would give me a hard time for certain things like this. But he wouldn't come out and say it, like, when we were in game or even right after the game. Like, he wouldn't address it. He would wait until it was, like, just them 4 playing. Or, like, when I was in class, he would go out and, like, talk to them about it and, like, basically try to either get me off the team or just badmouth me to everybody else and try to put, like, a bad taste in their mouth. And basically try to get everyone to want to stop teaming with me. And I don't know, I would say I was mind blown by this, but at the same time, like, I could understand why, he would say that.
Although, like, it was a surprise, you kind of expected it to happen at one point or another.
Pardon the pun, but, like, I could see something like that happening from somebody like that. Just the kind of person he is. But I really, like, I kind of understand the whole internet situation because, Scump went through that whole thing with World War II and everything else. But that's different because I was actually at college forced to do, I was trying to better myself and get a higher education. So that's a whole different story than actually just not wanting to move. But it, to me, was a lot more messed up because, from my understanding, he never came out to me and was like, yo, I feel like you're bullshitting about being blind. Like, he would never, never say anything. Well, he eventually, I guess got pissed or had enough, or it finally boiled over, and he kind of, lost full. And we were playing an Arsenal, or not Arsenal, Gridlock Control. And we were on defense. We were defending B. They had already capped A. It was a round 5. We were on defense. We could, the lives were about even. We could have won it for sure. Very winnable situation. Well, it was one of those where Mike and someone else went down up at the front of the hill, so over by the street. Pushed
Wait,
up.
that actually happened I was within that game? I thought that was something that happened outside of the game. Like, I thought that was something that just happened to you and him.
Nah, you were in the game. We had 4 we didn't have a full 5-man at the time, but it was a 4-man. And you and whoever else we were playing with at the time died up front. Then Shells was in at the back by the 18 wheeler. And I was in the laundry or mail or whatever you want to call that connector room right there. So I was sitting right there. I was holding the doorway. Well, I didn't see the guy cross the doorway, because I was checking it. I was like watching the cross. Well, I didn't see the guy cross. So he wrapped around, got behind Shells, killed him, and then snapped and killed me. So that's what won them the round and the game. So that the guy completely went off on me though, because I was like, dude, my bad, I didn't see him, that's my bad. He was like, bro, I'm fucking tired of hearing this, I can't see him, like, you're using this as an excuse. Not just that, but like, you're using the whole college Wi-Fi thing as an excuse. Like, you're actually just trash at the game. Every time you die, you have a reason for why. It's like, bro, if I get joked or like some fucked up shit happens, I'm letting you guys know. Like, if it's my internet or something like that, or like right there, I genuinely just didn't see the guy. And so I said that, and he was like, nah, bro, you're straight faking being blind. Like, no one fakes. Like, first of all, I don't care. I'm so tired of hearing people saying that I'm faking being blind. No one, literally not a soul on the planet fakes being blind. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But literally,
well, I could see
think about it.
Faking fully blind, but no one fakes legally blind.
Yeah,
like there are people that fake being completely blind because they want like they have Munchausen's, they want sympathy, or they want free shit. But you can't really fake being legally blind because like you don't really know, because most legally blind people don't walk around with a cane or like with special glasses or anything like that. They look like a normal person for the most part.
And I think because I'm able to do things like get up close and play the game, or because I'm able to do things like, you can shoot a basketball and make a three-pointer, it's like, oh, there's no way you're blind or, legally blind.
The sad part is you're blind and you would probably whoop his ass in COD.
Yeah, dude. And it's like, bro, legit, I know it's hard for people to fathom or to believe or to understand, but it's like, I am capable, just like anybody else, of adapting. You put someone in a situation for long enough, they're going to be able to overcome whatever they're in. Obviously, there's certain exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, like, obviously, if I'm passionate about something, I'm going to find a way to still be able to do it. Like with video games, I found a way around it. I found a way to keep playing.
Look at
Same thing with same thing with
Warzone.
basketball. Same thing with basketball. Like, I don't ever practice much, but like, I never quit playing. I still play to this day. I'll still go out there and shoot hoops from time to time, like have a good time. Like, I'm still a pretty damn good basketball player. I'm nowhere near like in college or pro level, but I'm a good player. And most people who would watch me play would say, like, there's no way you're blind based off of just the way I play basketball. And it's, it's frustrating because it's like, why can't y'all just accept that, like, I am blind, but I'm talented? Like, it's easier for them to believe that I'm a lying faker than it is for them to believe that I'm just actually good at something. Which it's like, bro,
Which
like,
is
just
very
give me the
sad.
credit. It's like, just give me the credit. Like, I proved to you that I'm good at something. It's like, oh, but it wasn't because you were blind. You're only good because, like, you're faking being blind. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I'm doing. It's so, yeah, it's dumb. You can't even give people like that the time of day. I swear, it just, they'll take any little thing and run with it.
See, I'm going through my list once again. Like, there's only a few thing. Like some of it we've discussed partially, and that like has ties into it. I'm just gonna try to go through and check everything off if that's possible. Um, Previously, like we talked, like previously in this podcast, we spoke about like our prime kind of with BO4, and how our prime was S&D. Something that I will always remember and always hate myself for is, Nick, you probably remember this because your memory is way better than mine. You know, like back in the day, I used to drop 20 bombs quite often. I didn't drop them every single game. I'm not a demon. But, I dropped them pretty consistently, or I dropped like 15 or 20 or 17, or like anywhere between there,
Yeah,
right?
a good amount for sure.
But one of the rounds, I think one of the games, I think you will remember probably one of the most keenly, at least I will, because, I experienced it and it haunts me to this day. It was a Hacienda S&D. I was using the Vapor because at that time, I did use the Vapor because, I wasn't aware of GAs and all that, but I didn't use it. Like, I used the actual setup. I didn't use, the Gregorius setup with a suppressor and a, thermal.
You weren't a Batavius?
Yes. And it was round 11. I had, like, 20 kills, give or take. Like, I think I had, like, 21 or 22, something like that. The kills aren't really what's important.
Yeah.
So I was 0. And I don't know if you remember this, because you can probably see where this is going if you do.
Yeah, I think I remember this.
It was like a 1vx situation, and I got like 2 or 3 picks, and I was like, I'm one off streaks. And like that sounds really stupid because it's a round 11.
Yeah.
It's a round 11 S&D. Like it doesn't matter if you have streaks if it's a 1v1. But if you think about it, it's the streaks that I had. Okay, I had a what was it called? Was it called a lightning strike? It was called a lightning strike in BO4, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to work my way to the lightning strike, and I know that sounds really stupid. But if you guys are any COD OG or any decent player that plays COD knows that an airstrike gives you 3 pings. It gives you 3 missiles as well as a ping, which is like basically a UAV but on a PDA, right?
So yeah, he just wanted to basically get the streak so he could get the info and know where the last 2 were.
Yeah, pretty. Well, I think it was a 1v1. It was a 1v1 that's what happened. But
or yeah, you got it down to a 1v1. It was like a 1v3 or something.
So what happened is in that situation, since I was like, if I play for this info, like I had plenty of time. If I play for this info and, I get this airstrike, I don't need the airstrike itself. I just need the ping to know where he's at. So I was like, okay, I'm 0. I have my ultimate. And I was well aware of this being a possibility, but I was like, I'll take the risks, right? So if you guys don't know, in BO4, 0, what she could do is she could hack everybody. And when she hacked everybody, she would give you points. Like, if you held square, it would go quicker. But it also revealed your location for, like, a minute or, like, 45 seconds.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I was thinking about that, but I was like, if I could really do this and pull it off, like, even if he knows where I'm at, as long as I don't get pre-fired, that pulls him to me. And I was like...
well, you were thinking, like, you would have
we would both have enough info on each other. It would be like radar on, basically. Yeah. And I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I did it. I start the hack, and before I could get the lightning strike to be pulled up, I think I was actually still hacking, or like, typing in the, the nuke or launch the nuke buttons, and I was like, I'm dead as fuck. And I was so pissed because I had like 24 kills, and that was back in the day.
I remember because you just pulled it up, like and it goes back to the whole thing we were talking about with the hesitation. Yeah. Mike hesitated, and he was like, he was gonna just chow the guy and try to smoke him, but then like he backed up. He was like, he's not gonna chow. So when Mike backed up, the guy full sent it. Well, he already had the pad
pulled up.
Yeah, bro. This man pulled it up, and it was like, bro. as he pulled it up, I hear this man full sprinting. But I know how Mike is. Mike doesn't want you to be like, yo.
Well,
Mike
like
doesn't want you to say shit, but
I
at the same time,
appreciate it, but
I didn't
yeah,
care. I was
yeah.
like, Mike, he's rushing you, he's rushing you, he's rushing you. And then Mike was like trying desperately, like putting it away.
I was like,
no.
put this shit away.
Bro, it would not go away quick enough. And all I remember, I don't even know what Mike hit, but he just slammed his hand hardcore.
I was pounding the fuck out of my desk. It's actually, I actually don't have the desk anymore, but it literally had like divots in it. Like it was a plastic desk with like a particle board backing, but I had dents in that bitch. I even stabbed it with a knife at one time.
Yeah.
But you know, and
crazy.
this also ties into the other part is not only that game, but other games, like on BO4, obviously games. I'm referring to like gameplays. I'm not referring to like actual other titles. I didn't know of the clip system until like you guys know I watched Savage 2C, or at least I used to before I went to Warzone, and he learned how to clip shit on PS4 as well, so he could like upload it. Like he streamed via PC, but he uses the PS4 for gameplay, and you know. He figured out how to do that. Well, I found out about that while after, like, after I stopped really playing BO4, like, all like that. Like, I did it, like, after my S&D. Like, after we stopped being a 5-man and, like, started trying hard as fuck. You know.
There we go.
You know, that's whenever I really learned about it. But all those 20 bombs on S&D, those 50 bombs on Hardpoint, all of that, I never got the clip. Because I would have so much content, you know, on my channel about it. Like, I still have content here and there, but, you know, not nearly as epic content. And, like, that was something that I really wanted to touch on because it's something that I hate myself for not being able to do it, but I also hate myself for not clutching that S&D because every time I think of BO4 and I think of S&D, I think of that, and it literally haunts me to this day. And that was almost 3 years ago.
Yeah. We all have a few clips like that, I'm sure, where it's like, yo, holy, like if I would have just clipped that, or like if I would have either clipped that and I didn't, or if I would have clutched up that and I could have clipped it. And,
yeah,
like, had
even if I didn't clip it, that was still a 24 kill game.
Yeah.
You know, a couple things, like obviously with the skill gap in BO4, I really don't need to touch that because, you know, although I technically did start online COD at BO4, I'm not a BO4 kid. Like, I can keep up with sweats to this day. I can play wagers on Cold War. You know, I'm not a horrible player. I'm not the best, but, you know, I can hold my own. Something that's kind of, like, obviously, it's very controversial, and this reminds me a lot of Envoy, or Envoy, or whatever it wants to be called by, depending on what whatever year of Call of Duty it is, you know.
Don't want to offend him.
Yeah, my boy Dill, I love Dylan. You know, but me and him share one trait. We share multiple. Besides, like starting off with the sub, which he still plays sub. However, like we're smart players and all that, whatever. But he was a swiper back in the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you guys don't know what swiping is, because depending on what game community you're in, it's called something different. Basically, swiping, actually I still have it right here with me. Swiping's whenever you use, on console at least, when you use a mouse and keyboard adapter, like a Zim Apex, this is what it looks like right here. I don't really use it anymore. But back in the day, I used it for Rainbow Six Siege just because that's what higher.
Because he was a cheater.
Yes, technically. In the ranked community, it was 95% M&K players, depending on what elo you were. But also, like for pubs, I started playing pubs on BO4 with it. You know, like it's not really, it's hurting, but it's not really the same. It's like still cheating, but it's technically, you know, it's not gonna hurt everybody the same as it was in ranked.
Yeah, and don't let me offend anybody out there. I just like to give Mike and people who play keyboard and mouse, I like to give them a hard time because me personally, I'm a console player. I'll show you guys here. Clearly, you guys can see your boy plays on the PS5. So, yeah, you know, it's
I still play on a controller. I don't really play on mouse and key, but you know, here's my controller or whatever. But you know, and whenever I did that, me and you even played some League play while I was using the mouse and key. And like I would pull off some plays that I couldn't do on controller, but it was mainly just like super long range engagements. Even then, not really. But you know, like people are gonna look back at this and think, oh, I was a cheater, and then I'm gonna have a bad rep, you know. And I didn't
Yeah.
do it enough that I got exposed for it or anything like that. However, it's something that if I'm here, I might as well come clean about it because yes, I did use a Zim at one point in time, you know, and a lot of the plays that I made on a Zim, I could do even easier on a controller. Believe it or not, because
I think you're a much better
I'm
controller.
a way better
Controller
controller player in any game that I play for the most part. You know, but that's something that I wanted to just make sure it was known because I touched on it, you know, and just like Envoy, like it's in the past, you know. Like I still might play like against bots or something for fun just to see it, like remind myself of what it was like. But it's not like I'm playing wagers or anything like it in today. You know, and this kind of reminds me of something on BO4 is if you watch anybody that plays wagers on BO4, you know, that's all it is at this point. It's year 3, almost year 4 at this point. You know, it's kind of it's like dead, you know, like the game itself isn't dead, but if you're playing wagers, more than likely you're playing up against a mouse and keyboard player for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple more things I want to talk on just to make sure I don't forget. First, there's 3 things that I want to discuss before we discuss anything else, which is how our passion has changed since BO4 and like how it's gone up and down. Our future plans on trying to pursue the comp scene and even try to like actually get a position in a decently high like organization or like, you know, like an amateur scene or whatever, and also how your like your disability, you know, Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy or neuropathy. I always thought
Neuropathy, yeah.
I always thought it was neuropathy because you know my family has that in them, has that
Yeah.
some of them have it, but besides the point, you know, and how does that also affect, you know, your ability to be in the comp scene? Because we had this discussion on World War II. I believe it was in the, I could be wrong, but I believe it was in the first podcast, and I just kind of want to do like a Q&A back and forth and kind of like the same opinions on both of us for that, and then we can touch up on some other things as well.
Yeah, I guess so. As far as like the competitive scene, obviously, I think it's just like any, as far as like anybody who is a Call of Duty player that takes it serious or who even watches competitive, I think anybody who sees that would love to be a player who's up there on the main stage, killing it, like, you know, your Scumpies, your Formals, RIP, you know,
We'll
not
discuss
trying
that
to,
towards the end, I
you know,
believe. Yeah.
but you know, your Scumpies, you got your Abezies, your Simps. Obviously, you would love to be one of those guys out here freaking just, you know, taking over on the main stage. Everyone dreams of that. It's like anybody who was a football fan, you know, of course, yeah, you're like, oh, I love football. I'm good at football. Let me go to the NFL. It's like, you know, obviously it's a dream that a lot of people have. But I think like it be from being a dream, like a football player, I think that's like, you know, an insane long shot. But like if you're really good and you think like you have the talent, it's not as hard as you might think. Same thing with the Call of Duty League. Obviously, it's a lot harder because a lot less spots. You know, there's not, you know, as many
It's more
spots on a
saturated as
roster,
well. Like
stuff
the
like that.
everybody wants to be a pro now. Like in previous, like back in the
Yeah.
day on BO2, people that were like, "Oh, I want to be a pro," they ended up for the most part being a pro because the scene was not very saturated at all. Now it's like millions
Yeah.
of people want to be a pro.
Yeah, and now with it being, you know, everybody being under a contract and everything being, you know, under the franchise, it has now made it a lot more difficult. It's not like where people can just weasel their way onto teams. Like you actually have to earn your worth and you have to be a damn good player. But you know, there's only so many spots, and you know, it doesn't matter if at the end of the day, yeah, obviously, like I said, me, Mike, and I'm sure almost every one of you guys here who likes Call of Duty, at least to a certain level, would love to be a pro. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. But as far as like being talented enough, I think in World War II, obviously, you guys didn't see a lot of the competitive stuff I did on my channel. I mainly did like pubs and
Mastered
posted, you know,
camos.
camo grinding videos and streams and stuff like that. But what I did play of it, like I felt like I was insanely good at it. I felt like I had an actual shot of at least making it like amateur, maybe not pro level, but amateur at
You
least.
were rewarded for your plays as
And
well. Like if you made a
yeah,
good play, you were rewarded, unlike other CODs.
yeah. So I would say like the passion was there. Like once I realized, I was like, man, I actually probably could do something. Like I could probably like at least be like an amateur or something, you know. So that's when I started to really take it serious. Obviously, like back then, I didn't have any teammates. All my, like I said, all my boys then were like quitting playing Call of Duty. And then a couple years after, that's when I had found Mike. And back then, that's when my passion was insanely like running. You know, it was overflowing. I was insane with the passion back then. Like, I was very confident. Not that I would be a pro or anything, but just in my abilities. And I was confident in my teammates, you know, and still to this day, I'll gas my teammates up, let them know, like, you know, I try to be the best teammate that I can. But I'll say, like, overall, I think there's a lot more than what people think. Like, they think, oh, I can shoot my gun straight, so let me be a pro. It's like, there's a lot more that goes into it. Like, you got to be not just a good people person, but I think you need to be a damn good communicator. You need to be, you know, damn good at being able to problem solve. You need to be able to sit here and work with your teammates. You need to be reasonable. You know, you need to be somebody who can take criticism. You know, you need to be able to do all these things. Like certain people think, oh, I can shoot my gun straight, let me be a pro. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Like there's 48 spots in the league.
You definitely have people that are like the main gunner, like the entry fragger. And like they're still smart players, but they're gonna be the people that make the dumbest plays or that rely off of their gun skill. But besides that entry fragger, like I'm not saying they're brain dead, but some entry fraggers, even in other games, are. But you know, being a pro, like Nick said, isn't just about shooting your gun straight. If that was the case, you know, everybody, not everybody, obviously, but like the vast majority, like the top like percentage of people would end up being pros because as long as you can outshoot somebody. But that's not how it works because it's off of game sense, game knowledge, you know, playmaking abilities, able to clutch with like, you know, under a lot of pressure. If you have like 500k people, I know like stadiums aren't that big for, you know, the CDL, but let's say you have 500 people watching you on a main stage, like, you know, you're gonna get, you know,
the pressure's on.
Yeah, the pressure's on. Like look at, you know, Optic and like the perfect example was look at, you know, Optic and you know, Seattle Surge, like separately, not versus each other's, but every time they did something, they were gassed up for it because of the chat or the you know, the stage. And like obviously they have noise canceling headsets and they have like earbuds. I'm pretty sure that's how they do it.
Yeah, but it's a whole different ball game from playing in the bedroom.
That's how they do it in other esports. But you know, they also whenever they were down in the like if they were down by 50 points or they were down like, you know, let's say 3-5 or 4-5 or whatever, you know, they had their whole like coexistence, like, you know, all their supporters in that stage like screaming let's go Optic, you know, or like, you know, like every time Seattle Surge would get like a 3 down or a 4 down, you just hear them screaming at the top of their lungs. And I've even done it myself at home whenever I'm watching, you know, champs or like, you know, finals or like semifinals, you know, because a lot of those teams are my top teams, you know, or like you know what I'm saying? So in that sense, you know, you have a lot of supporters, but if you're, you know, like if it's fucking Minnesota Rocker versus Toronto Ultra and like you're either the underdog or, you know, you're playing in someone else's area, like if you're playing in someone else's hometown and you're the guest, every time they do something, they're gassing them up and you're getting downgraded. And every time you do something good, they're downgrading you. So, like, you have to deal with stress, anxiety, you know, just pressure under itself. So, there's a lot to it. And a lot of pros and even, like, you know, a lot of pros and spectators and, you know, people that come up with all these theories, they say, you know, like, wait till these teams go back to, you know, LAN. Because a lot of teams are, sad to say it, but a lot of teams are online-based teams now. Teams that won't make it on LAN, not because they're not amazing players, like, if you take out all the variables, they're amazing players and they can make it to champs. But then if you put in all the variables of, you know, all this pressure and anxiety and, you know, having to perform in front of everybody and then having the wrath of somebody if you go 0-9 in a, you know, an S&D or 0-11, you know, you have to be able to put yourself in that mental stress, which is why, a lot of pro players are quitting. You know, I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't really want to segue into this yet, but it's kind of a perfect time to discuss. Unfortunately, our boy, Matthew Piper, also known as Formal,
Yeah.
he quit the competitive scene. He retired. He said that he wanted to retire for at least a year, and then he wants to come back and see if he wants to do it again because it
Yeah.
like scrimming every day and having to deal with all that if you have a bad performance. He doesn't want to deal with that because it's very mentally taxing. It puts you in a state where you're not like all there mentally, and it's like it puts you in a really bad situation. And I'm really sad to hear that he's not gonna be in this next COD. Like, because that's one of my boys. That's one of the people that I idolize when it comes to COD because
Hmm.
I would like to associate myself in resemblance of him. Like, obviously, I'm not the same skill level, but if I think of myself, I think of myself as a up and coming Formal, quote unquote. And not that I will ever be a Formal or I'll be near as good or I'll even make it to the pro or amateur or whatever scene. But I would like to think as myself as someone that likes to resemble Formal just because of his personality. Like he's a hilarious guy. He could literally turn something super shitty and make it into like an hilarious situation. You know,
Yeah.
as well as T2P, which it kind of reminds me of me and you in a sense. Now that I switched to the AR,
Yeah.
depending on the COD, it's gonna be different because I'm more of a flex. With Cold War, the beginning, like I said, the beginning year I was a sub, and towards the end I was an AR. And this could change. However, with Vanguard, I'm most likely gonna be a sub just because of the pacing issues and like the visibility. It's very hard for me to see. I'm not blind, but you know, I'm close to it, and my reaction
Hmm.
time isn't the best. So, I have to make up for that. But I'm very sad to see, Matt leaving, and hopefully he will come back. I
Yeah,
have the best
I
wishes
think
for
for
him.
sure he will. I think there's no way in hell that the last time we ever see Formal on the COD league or like in a COD league is the Cold War season. Like there's no
No,
way. I refuse to believe it. He's
because
way too good. Like I think he's gonna look at it and be like, it's another World War II COD. Like he just wants to
he
skip
wants to
this
take a
one.
break from it. Like it's
He
like
doesn't want that time period. You know what I mean? Like
I'm the
he
same
just
way.
yeah, like he just wants to be able to get to a better COD, like, and he's hoping, the closer we get, and we've been hearing rumors for years now that 2023 jetpacks are supposed to be coming back,
That's
and
something I was gonna say. I'm sorry
you
for
know what
cutting you off.
happened? You know what happened the last time that the
Bro,
jetpacks
bro,
were a
I or
thing?
not fucking IW, bro, and like obviously this is not me, loving Formal because I'm not one of the Optic fanboys that will just say that they're an amazing team, but I personally think Formal was the best AR, if not
Best
one.
MP4 player in the game, hands
Yeah,
down.
I think he's one of the best AR players in general, if not the best player in my opinion, because of the plays that he would make and the situations that he was in. He basically pulled Octane before Octane was even known for being Octane. Like people know who he was, but doing the
Yeah,
things that he did on BO4, he did in IW, which wasn't really a thing back then. And I think that whenever he goes into, like, if he ever does come back and it's a jetpack COD, I think besides his shot probably not being the exact same due to the fact that engines change, he would have taken a break from COD from at least a year or two. But I think that if he comes back and it's a 3D movement game, that I believe he's gonna be. He might not be a champ, but he's gonna he's gonna run the reins, and he's gonna be the top player in that season. And I
yeah,
can
he'll
almost
definitely be
guarantee
a
that.
contender. He'll definitely be a contender for sure. But I refuse to believe that this will be
Because
the
it was
last
kind
time
of
that we
like
see
it was kind
Formal.
of sudden. Like it wasn't like a we seen it coming type thing. It was like even though it could be noticed by others, like it was something where like to me I was like, is this a fucking joke? Like what is this? And I had to actually pay attention to it to understand. And
Yeah,
the only reason I'm sorry for cutting you off, like I said, the only reason why I think that I don't believe that it will be the last time we see him, but one reason why I think it might be is just because if you look at even Scump's video, it was kind of like in memorial of or in memory of, Obviously,
Yeah.
Karma's not dead, thank God. You know, but they were talking about, like, they're going through clips of his gameplay and, like, interviews with people of him. Like, they have, like, Hex, Hitch, like, a lot of his old teammates, and
Yeah.
it's the documentary itself. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, it's making it seem like he won't be coming back. But and like all in all, it's up to him to make that decision, and I believe that his fans will kind of entice him into coming back. What are your opinions on that?
Well, I kind of think that, like, I think because from what we've heard from Scump and other people, uh, pretty much it was already confirmed that Envoy and Formal were getting dropped off Optic, pretty much regardless. Like, that was like confirmed. That was gonna happen anyways. Like, before Formal had retired, like, he knew he was gonna be getting dropped. So, like, he kind of retired anyways and said, like, whatever. So I feel like, even let's say he didn't retire, I feel like him leaving Optic
It would have put
the
him in a
way
really
he
bad
did.
situation.
Well, I feel like even if he was to just leave and not retire, I feel like they still would have did the videos that they did and stuff like that, just
Fair
because,
enough.
like, he's no longer a part of Optic. So it's like, I think even if he comes back, I don't think he'll be on Optic, which would be obviously a weird sight, kind of like in the BO4 days when he was on Luminosity.
Also in MW with the Huntsman.
Yeah, but I think, like, they were making those videos because it's like, hey, he's never going to be a part of Optic again. Like, even if he does come back,
It's always
it's
a
not,
possibility that he'll be back in Optic, but it's like chances are
yeah,
slim to none.
it's unlikely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think he'll come back. I just think, like, he's waiting for the right time, and I even think we have potential for Karma to come back. I don't know if you've heard this. I don't want to go delve too deep into
You
it,
inspired another thought, but continue on.
but yeah, I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to delve too deep. But his wife Holly has been talking a lot about Karma coming back and competing. Whether that's in Vanguard or whether that's in the next, whatever. I would love to see Karma come back. And I would love, more than anything, no offense to Clay,
I
all the
love
offense to
Clay.
Crim6.
I love Clay. He said all the offense to Crim6.
No, no offense to Clay. Clay's the homie, but, like, fuck Crim6. Actually, I don't care if anyone clips this and tweets it at him or not. Like, fuck you, dude. All right, just so you know. You have way too much in ego. You think you're way better than everybody, and, like, yeah, there's definitely kids way better than you for sure. Like, you might have won more, but there's kids out there that are way better for sure.
It's because he had better opportunities and he had better position. Like, I'm not gonna disclose my opinion, but, like, to clarify in your situation, he had more opportunities and more insight than other people did because he had more connections.
Yeah, and just overall, just better teammates and stuff like that. But I'll say this: I would love more than anything. Like I said, no offense to Clay. But I would love more than anything for Karma to come back and get the fourth ring. I would love to see him, like, have that disparity again. And, because now it's like, oh, well, it's always been Karma.
It's
always been, it's always been Karma, Mr. 3 Rings, the GOAT. Now everybody's like, oh, well, Crim6 is the GOAT because he's won more overall. And now he also has 3 rings like Karma. It's like, bro, I'd love more than anything for Karma to come back
and, like, prove
after all this time and then just be like, yep, listen here, bitches, this is how it's happening. Karma throws together a team, gets people to play the right way, freaking dominates the game, wins the freaking world championship, gets his 4th ring. I would love more than anything to see that, because I think it would be absolutely wild for him to not only come back and win another championship,
but show his worth and show that he still has it.
Just to show everybody up and be like, look, I'm still the best, bitches. Here's the thing. And so that way, he would be the only one with 4 rings, show up, Crim6 and Clayster, and be like, yep, y'all got 3, I got 4, bitches. I think that'd be so cool. But...
Like, I'm going to have to go here in a second just to do something real quick. So, like, I know you can, take care of that, Nick. But something I wanted to segue in that's going to segue into a different podcast later on down the road. A few topics, since it's, like, we have a little bit of extra head time here, as well as, like, these are some topics that I want to discuss. First thing is my boy Tommy. You know who Tommy is, guys. If
Yep.
you don't know who Tommy is, that you know he member of NYSL. Zuma.
Zuma.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Runner of the flank.
yes, sir. And with his recent hand injury, I have something to talk about him as well as Hook. You could probably also guess what I'm talking about in both of these. First thing is, like I said, with Tommy with his hand injury, do you think that he will be back in COD? Do you think he'll be a decent contender if he does come back? As well as, like, this is something that I want to talk about in a separate podcast on its own, but I kind of want to start getting the headway out there, is with Hook, which, like, I love my boy Hook. I don't see him any different than I do now than I did before. But how do you think that he's changed since MW 2019 champs, as well as the obvious discussion that's coming out of his, Adderall abuse and addiction at one point, which was rumored halfway into Cold War. If you look at Tactical Rab, that was leaked like a while before he came out about it. However, with Hook, like, he's still the homie, and I respect him even more for being transparent about it, and discussing exactly what happened. Like I said, I will be back in one moment, but, pick a topic. To pick either one, I really don't care. Just, pick one of the topics and, start saying your opinion, then I'll come back in and chime in with any extra info.
All right, so here's the thing, guys. I kind of have a lot more to say about the whole Hook situation, so I'll start with that. So basically, with the whole Hook situation, like Mike said, I definitely respect the guy a lot. I didn't really follow him that closely, so I can't really speak on like how he was as a person, like so how it differs from then to now, like him on Adderall compared to him off Adderall. So obviously, I know like he made a lot of health changes, he got off of it, all that, but he, like Mike said, for those of you who don't know, he did come out and admit that he was under the influence of Adderall while he won the world championship, which to me is absolutely mind-blowing, because it's like he straight up came out and said like he was using performance enhancing drugs to help him win a tournament, which I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm not saying that he's not capable. He's more than capable. He even claimed that he felt like he was a better player afterward, after coming off of the Adderall and just playing, and getting cleaned up and everything else. He felt like he was better. But I will say, from my perspective, the way I initially reacted to this was, I heard all about this and I was mind blown. Like, I didn't think he could actually come out. Maybe, this is partially because I'll admit I'm ignorant to the fact of, like, I don't know what exactly would happen if somebody comes out and says, like, hey, I was on drugs, like, what if somebody would have came out and said, like, they were on some crazy kind of drugs and they would have won that? Would it be any different than Adderall? Because Adderall's been kind of in the talks since, like, 2012, like 2010. Mm-hmm. It's been so long. And every single time, I kid you guys not, every time that the topic is brought up, same thing that happened with Tommy and with the flank. Every time it's brought up and they try to address it, it gets swept under the rug. People get, they freaking make sure that these high up people make sure that it's not talked about. They don't want too much coverage on it. They don't want too many people to know about it. But it's been a problem literally since way back in the day when Optic Maniac was taking it. He was on the main stage, absolutely screwed out of his mind, had no idea what was going on. And, I'm not going to get into that whole topic, but basically I'll say this, I personally, I think Hook is a great player. I think he's really good, but I almost would love to see, I know it, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I would have loved to have seen, like, when he came out with that, I would almost love to have all the main teams, like the top 4, maybe the top 6 teams, go and just have another tournament and compete for it. If Dallas
would that take away his ring though, or would that be an additional tournament just to test his skill, or would it be like a rematch essentially?
Yeah, or even if they wanted to do a rematch of champs, Dallas versus Atlanta FaZe, it's whatever. But the problem with doing that is the players had, kind of broken up with Crimsix and Hook and
Yeah.
people fighting and all the
They
internal
would they
affairs.
would they would
That's what
lose not
screwed
just
everything
because
up.
of Hook, but they would lose because of the whole situation like around it as well, not just
Yeah.
the actual thing, not the abuse itself.
Yeah, so that's my main issue is like you can't really like have a rematch, but like that was my initial thought was be like, oh, because like I almost want to say, well, like he doesn't deserve that because like how do we know that he would have won and performed as good as he did without being on the drugs? I'm not saying he can't because he's obviously proved that he can be just as good not being on drugs. But the fact that he what like I don't know. I thought there would be more repercussions for him coming out and
I'm
saying like,
surprised there
"Yo,
one is as well.
yeah." So it's like I thought he'd either be suspended, wouldn't be allowed to play, would have it like maybe just him would have his ring taken away, not the other
Yeah.
four players, or something to that effect is what I would think. But like no, it seems like nothing really happened. It kind of like they talked about it, but it still doesn't feel like I don't feel like anything was it really like any action was really taken towards him, towards the league, towards like trying to better everything. Like I feel like nowadays somebody could still be taking, Adderall or any other kind of drug for all we know, and it's like, dude, what else is being swept under the rug? We don't really know. And so I think that whole issue is kind of like kind of crazy to me that it wasn't really addressed.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess at the same time, it should be to be expected. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like I said, since 2012, every time this is brought up or
It's just swept under the
anything,
rug.
it's just swept under the
Um,
rug. They change the subject, So
I have. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
go ahead.
You can go back to it as soon as I say this. I have a different opinion on this and like a different outlook on this, but continue saying what you're saying before we continue.
No, I was just gonna say, for the most part, like I just want to clarify, I do not think he's a bad player. I think he's one of the best players to do it for sure. And I think he deserves a spot in the league, but I just think him waiting as long as he did to come out, which like I get it, he wanted to make sure he was in the right state of mind and all of that.
Because it
But
takes
I
quite a
think
while to
like
get over it. Like I've
yeah.
had someone that actually was heavily addicted to it, and it took a long time for him to go through withdrawal to actually get like straightened up.
Well, I think it just like I don't hold any grudges towards him personally, but I think it just made him look bad because it
It
like it
definitely
almost
did. It
made
put
it
a
look
sour
like
taste in
oh
everybody's mouth.
like it almost made it look like oh well now there's a decent amount of time has passed, like let me say this, like now nobody will really care as much.
Yeah, it's like a statute of
Like if he would
limitations
have
almost.
yeah, like if he would have came out like 2 days or a week after winning and said something like that, I feel like it would have been handled a lot differently than months later. You know what I mean? But
Give me one moment. My apologies. I have to fix something real quick because someone keeps bothering me during my Discord call and it's gonna interrupt everything. So give me one moment, chat. I apologize for the inconvenience.
nah, yeah, do your thing. Everybody understands. Yeah, hey, we're only on episode 2, guys. So if y'all haven't already, be sure to drop a like for you boys. Subscribe if you guys are new around here. We're almost up to 10 subscribers, chat. Let's freaking
Okay,
go.
we should be good now. Okay, cool. I apologize for that, chat. So I have a couple of opinions on this. I have a couple different opinions than yours, and I have a couple ones that could be controversial as well. First things first. I know you said that you didn't really know a whole lot about him personally. Like he wasn't my favorite player, but he was definitely like I definitely liked him, and like I kind of like him not even more now because of what all has happened. However, with the whole personality thing, I've watched multiple. I've done quite a bit of research on this, and seen what everybody has to say about him, and like they say that he's kind of like you in a sense, like he's an outgoing person. He'll take the shirt off his back and give it to you if you need it. Like he's one of those people that like they'll do anything for you as long as you don't fuck them over.
Yeah.
And something that he's even said himself is that once he did start abusing it, which I believe the reason why he abused it is I'm not sure exactly if I'm correct about this. I could be wrong, but basically like I think either he didn't scrim a whole lot the couple days before, or he didn't get like hardly any sleep, or some reason like that, which I don't think that's justifiable, but I'll get to that later on in this whole situation. Um, but I believe that that like they even said, and he said it himself, that he started becoming a dick. Like he started like getting tunnel vision on the end goal, and he was not caring about his teammates whatsoever. He just wanted to win,
Yeah.
And like I can understand where that gets from, because where it comes from. I've done it myself, even without any type of substance abuse. It does happen. It happens to everybody. But whenever you have Adderall, you genuinely, you definitely zone in more to one thing, and you get tunnel vision. So if it's something like champs, I can definitely understand that a lot. However, I believe that his reasoning, regardless of what it is unjustifiable. Even if you have like a mental disorder like ADHD or something like that, there should be exceptions for like this competitive COD scene. However, it shouldn't be something where everybody gets a doctor's note that says it, and then bam, now you can abuse your Adderall. As well as with the whole thing that you said and discussed about how how everybody would react if it was a different substance. And honestly, I think that it would be even lesser than it is now. I believe that because it is Adderall, which is it's kind of like a malicious thing. Even though if it wasn't a malicious intent, it's kind of in a malicious format, because it's one of those things that is it's one of those things where it's specifically made to help you focus. Although it might not be for that one aspect, it's kind of malicious in a sense, because your whole point is to focus in and focus on everything while the game's going on, like we discussed earlier, and how difficult it can be with you're not in that right set of mind. And I think that it probably would have been even lesser of an impact on everybody if it was something else. And with your whole rematch thing, or like have another tournament, I believe that people that believe that, that's very justifiable, and I can believe that, and technically he was cheating, as well as it was kind of obvious, not during online COD, because it's online COD during COVID and all that, but even during LAN at one event at one point in time, I believe it was in Cold War, I could be wrong, but he refused to take another urine test, and also he had his name spelled wrong, which that kind of sounds dumb, but you don't just spell your name wrong unless like something's wrong, or like
Well, what I heard from Kenny at the time was he said like it was a typo. Like when he was typing it up or whatever,
he's too
and
jittery.
he said it was like a typo, but then he said like, okay, even Draza, who at the time was the backup, he had already had his COVID form like filled out. He had his test done, like had everything done like days in advance, like 3 days before. Well, Hoog showed up late, didn't show up with didn't bring his ID with him, and then he brought a picture of his ID, and he couldn't show that to the doctor, so to whoever he had to show it to. So it was like he didn't have his proper documentation, showed up late, and all of this. So they ended up just having Draza play instead, because it was like on top of everything else. Yeah, on top of all the rumors, everything else going on, all that was already happening, he messed up his form, showed up late. It just seemed like he didn't care, and seemed like he didn't want to put in effort. And so like I do give him props for, admitting that he was wrong, and like realizing like it was his own mistakes, and like he didn't blame anybody for it. But like the only thing that got me really heated about like him coming out and saying that is because it's like, it almost feels like in a way he took away a championship from not just my team, but from my boys, like Simp and Abizi, because they won in Black Ops 4 on E United. And then they could have won in Modern Warfare. I was like, they definitely could have did that. I easily could have seen a world where, if they weren't cheating, which I don't want to say they were all, or whatever. We don't know what the outcome would have been, but they easily, we could all see a world where FaZe would have won that.
Yeah.
And then them winning that, then going into the Cold War, that means they would have been back-to-back world champions
And
going into Cold War.
They would have had a lot more momentum as well.
Then they would have won Cold War, so they could have been all 3 seasons that Simp and Abizi were not only teaming together, but were in the Call of Duty League. They freaking they won every single world championship.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine being Simp or Abizi?
3 champs back to back, let alone with your duo.
You come into the league, and it's like you hear of you're playing with all the people you grew up watching, and like you're playing against them, and you're like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I'm playing up against Scump and all these crazy people that I used to watch back in the day, and it's like, oh, you're coming out on top time and time again, and it's like you've been in the league 3 years, all 3 years.
Joked. You don't feel like you won justifiably.
Yeah, and it's like all 3 years it's like, okay, I joined the league, and every single world championship since when they joined in, it's like they realistically either they should have won or they did win. Yeah. So it's like, I think it's crazy that, like, I couldn't imagine being a duo or even just a solo person coming in and just taking over the league like that. That's why so many people gas up Simp and Abizi the way they do.
Yeah. I can definitely understand that, and like I believe at the time I was definitely at the time of 2019 I was definitely a FaZe fan. I still like FaZe, I still respect FaZe, but in Cold War I didn't care for them as much just because of how dominant they were. I wanted to see like the underdogs, and I definitely wanted to see my boys win. Unfortunately they didn't, but that's beside the point. And I believe that although in that situation, it kind of did feel unjust, and even Hook just said it himself. Like, I don't feel accomplished from this. I don't feel like I gained anything from it. I feel like I just cheesed it, which is how a lot of people that play mouse and keyboard on console in tournaments feel. It doesn't feel good, but it gets the job done. And I feel like he has a sense of remorse for it. However, I feel like all the teams feel like they got joked, and I definitely think that FaZe does. And looking back on it, although I was a FaZe fan at the time, and I still do like FaZe, I'm not happy that they won, but I'm also not mad that they won. I feel like they played a decent game, and I could be wrong. However, and definitely during champs, I can't say previously before champs, because we don't know exactly when it started and when it didn't, or when it ended really. However, I believe that in champs he definitely made some plays that were high tier, but I don't feel like he stood out enough for it to be like, he couldn't do that, or like he wouldn't have done that without it, which I know you were saying.
Well, kind of to that point, after he got off of it and everything, after champs, going into the Cold War season, he even talked about this in his 30-minute video or whatever, but during that first event where they got second and Hook was the best player in the game, he wasn't on anything. He wasn't, he was he was eating real healthy.
Sober,
he was completely sober. He was doing real good for himself. He was getting really healthy. He was doing everything the right way, and he was dominating. He was the best player in Cold War for that first event.
Yeah, so that proves
he definitely can do it. But I want to say a couple of things before we forget. As far as going back a little bit when you had asked me about me being legally blind and how that affects my chances of becoming a pro. I'll definitely say in World War II, before I kind of, was fully aware of the discrimination of how badly people discriminate against blind people and even, visually impaired people and all kinds of stuff like that. I was initially under the impression oh, I'm good enough, that'll be enough to just carry me to there. I'm good. I'm a good teammate. I called out all this, but I feel instantly it wouldn't matter. I feel like
the first time that you lose a round or you cost them a custom mode, custom map,
I'm
cost
gonna be
around
scapegoated.
or a series, they're gonna scapegoat you and they're gonna be like, I want this dude dropped. But in my
Yeah.
opinion, the times where you don't see someone in a cost around is equal as much as how many times they could see the person, but how many times they choke or whatever. And I feel like
Yeah.
the times where you actually are very consistent outweighs the one or two times that it does happen. However, they would pull up the excuse in, like, let's say magically, you're on like a challenger team or like a pro team, and it's literally champs, and it's champs. Okay, well, depends on what map count it goes up to, because at some CODs it was 5, some it was like 9. So it could be 11. It depends on the year, really,
Yeah.
whatever they want to do. But it could be that round 11, map 9, or map 11, or whatever, and it's a 1v1. You don't see someone, and like maybe you get
Yeah.
to maybe you kill them, but you didn't kill them quick enough because you didn't see them and you don't have enough time to defuse. You know,
Yeah.
and it's something like, although it's very rare that would happen. If it were to happen, you would be immediately scapegoated and dropped, and then you would be probably publicly humiliated because of it. Even
Yeah.
though your circumstances. So I feel like
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was only gonna add on to that real quick and say, like, that's assuming that, and in this, obviously, in this hypothetical scenario we're talking about, that's assuming someone even took the chance and rolled the dice and even gave me an opportunity to be on their team. But for the most part, I don't even think people would even consider me as like an option. They'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, like I feel like they could literally sit there, watch a live stream or like a 30-minute video of just straight highlights of me dominating.
Mm-hmm.
They watch that, they're like, hell yeah, this guy's good. I want him on my team. Let's go get
The
him.
first time you don't see somebody, they want to drop you.
Or like, they'll watch all this gameplay, they'll see all this, they'll hear my comms, they'll like know everything. Then they're like, oh yeah, and then they'll hear me talk about me being legally blind and talk about my story, and they're like, yeah, we'll find someone else, it'll be fine. It's like, I feel like that's just how it's gonna go. It's like me and you, obviously not on this podcast, off camera, we've had a lot of conversations about getting jobs and stuff like that. And not just with being a pro, but with any type of thing in life, if they see, let's say me and you have the exact same qualifications going into a job, like a high school diploma, same work experience, all that, they're going to hire you over me every
Because
day
you
of
have
the week,
you
just
have a
because.
disadvantage. You're
Yeah,
not as,
just because
quote
you're
unquote, not
fully
as good.
sighted, they're gonna be like, oh well, this guy, he's gonna be more efficient because he can see. He's gonna be able to do the job quicker. He's gonna be able to get things done on time. Like, they're gonna look at that. They're not gonna want to even give me the time of day. They're not gonna want to even take the chance. And that's what the problem is because, like, I feel like if a team would ever take the chance on me, they wouldn't regret it. But it's like, they're never gonna find that out without taking the chance, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's
Because,
it's
like,
just a revolving door of like,
it's an endless loop, like you
Yeah.
could, like, even if you do have a really bad map, like not even a series, you just have a bad map, and like you're like fucking Doug Sensor Martin, like you're
Yeah.
soaking hill, but you're like quadruple neg, penta
Yeah.
neg, and they're gonna be like, well, you did really horrible that series, but then they're gonna think about your hill time, but they're really not gonna realize how many times you got caught off, how many times
You
were
got
just
double teamed
you
or
were
whatever.
just soaking, or you just got double chowed, or how
Yeah.
many times, like, I guess, like, I wouldn't say anything that's like bullshit, because like hammering, all that's a part of the competitive scene, but like how many times maybe
Like, you just got caught on the rotation and you're like
Yeah.
solo hitting it or whatever.
or you
Like,
got caught from an angle that even sighted players can't fucking see, like even on
yeah,
like on Ramaza, how there's some of those angles, into hills where like you would have to know about it to be able to
Yeah.
see it. Like, it's not something you just see. So
yeah, you just check it at that point.
yeah, you would see, like, they would look at this and be like, oh wow, you did really bad that series, like you're not a good player, and they're gonna judge you off of your performance over one or two matches. They're not gonna take your overall. They're not gonna take in. They're mainly gonna look at like your gun skill. They're not gonna look at your game sense. Your map knowledge. How you are as an IGL. How you are on the team.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And it's kind of sucks that that's what our world has come to in the competitive scene of pretty much anything, where I understand why people don't take a chance on somebody because they might have a bad experience. But you also have to realize you have to give these people that aren't as fortunate literally the same opportunity because they might shock you.
Yeah. I know there was another player that you wanted us to talk about. We talked about the whole Hook situation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you had it there on your notes. But I know
Tommy.
there was another player. Oh, Tommy. Okay.
Yeah, Tommy.
So with the whole Zuma situation and him being able to potentially come back, I think he could. But I don't think he would
Would
ever
he,
really
though?
want to,
Yeah.
just because of the fact that it's like, if this was like back in the day where, like, back then people didn't take it, like, they took it serious, but it wasn't like, oh, you
Ride
need
or
to play
die.
8 to 10 hours, like
Yeah.
8, 10, 12 hours a day. They did it for passion back then, but it wasn't like you're forced to do this. And so I think with everybody having to play as much as they do nowadays, I think like it would be really hard for him to play that much without his thumb hurting him constantly.
Yeah.
And I think if he played less than other people, he wouldn't be able to be like an outstanding sub. Like, he wouldn't be that much help for his team if he's not putting in the time. Because if he puts in too much time, he's gonna be hurting his thumb. So
and then
it's like,
gonna be even worse whenever it comes to the actual match. So
yeah. So I think like he has that potential, like he could, but ultimately I don't think he would.
Yeah. And plus, like, I think he's like following that road down content creation now, just because, like, I don't think he's given up on the competitive scene. However, I believe that like he still enjoys league play and all that, and like he would probably still like enjoy doing wagers and stuff like that. But I don't think he'd be someone that wants to, scrim every day and then have the risk of him messing up like his thumb or messing up a muscle in his thumb, and then having to play a match when he's disabled, or like putting in all that scrim time just to have a problem with his thumb again, and then they have to bring in a sub that literally has less experience, So
and
I
less
feel like,
team chemistry and all that.
yeah, like I feel like as a player that he's gonna be, I feel like he's gonna be a good player, but I think that he wouldn't have the same type of stamina that other people have. As well
Now,
as,
on the other hand, I think he would be a damn good analyst or coach.
he would definitely be a very good coach, especially with like his personality. Like, I know a coach would be kind of more strict, but I feel like Tommy, with like his personality and like the way he does like his accents and like brings humor into the whole mix, I feel like he would be cursing him out in like a humorous accent.
Yeah,
and then
but
bring it back.
he wouldn't.
Of course not.
For sure he wouldn't stand for them do it. Like let's say he with the whole situation that was happening with New York, how like they were having all that internal drama, and now that's why like Asim and Clay, like, they don't have beef, but
I
they
didn't
just don't
even
want to
really
play
know
together.
I didn't even know that was even a thing, really, to be honest.
Yeah, like, well, because they would have stayed together, but like they kind of just argued a lot, and that's why the team, like, because out of nowhere, Hydra had that insane event, like they were all popping off, like taking over, doing really good, and then like they all kind of just started arguing and bitching at each other.
Because they went down. You noticed, like, after a few matches, like, it literally went from from 60 to complete 0 very quickly.
Yeah, and I think if Zuma was obviously, like, he was talking to those guys and everything, but I feel like if he was the coach, he wouldn't stand for that. Like, he'd be making sure they were all on the same page. He'd make sure like that would change. Yeah, for sure. So I think, like, I don't know, it's up to you, but I feel like this might be a pretty good place to wrap it, unless you got anything else you'd like to add.
There's a few more things, but I think within the next like 15 minutes or so we should be out of here. Something like, I know that you're trying to go to sleep a little bit earlier for personal reasons. However, like, just I'll have one or two more topics and then we can wrap it up.
Hey, bro, you're doing your thing. I'm vibing. It's always a good time just in here conversating, chilling, having a good time.
Sure.
So.
Something that like I've thought about personally. I don't really know about the whole controversy with all that, but I think I kind of want your opinion on it as well. But like with Scump, like, I think Scump's a really good player. We all love Scump. He's iconic since BO2, bro. Optic Scumpy. But I feel like recently he hasn't been performing the way that he has in the past. Not just with Cold War, but with BO4. And I feel like he's definitely a really, really good player. But I feel like, people are starting to doubt him. and I think that we need him to like have a second win and like bounce back and like prove himself again, because although he's known as the king, like he's had really good clips on Cold War. He literally got an ace on Cold War, and he got like 10 kills within like 3 rounds, in a couple S&D matches. I feel like people are still doubting him. Even myself, I have doubted him here and there, depending on, if he has a very bad performance among a couple series. But I want kind of your opinion on that, and if you think what can bring like a lot of the fans back and try to like prove to them that he is still a damn good player.
Well, I will say this. I completely am with people on saying like him in Black Ops 4, like he was not. I wouldn't even put him in the top 5 best subs in BO4. Like I think there was a lot of really good submachine gun players in that game. I would put Envoy above him in that game for sure, and he was on the team that I favored back then. That was Gen G. There was a lot of teams that I think had really good sub players. So like, there's definitely been like World War II, BO4. Like he's had a few years where he hasn't been the best for sure. But like Cold War, I don't like. Modern Warfare, he was up and down. It was whatever. I definitely think Envoy was better than Scump for that, for the Modern Warfare season. But I think Scump, especially the last like 2 events, including Champs, I think Scump on Champs like really turned up. He freaking, he was showing out, letting people know. I think a lot of people doubt him, and I think there's always going to be doubters and haters that are always just going to think that he's not capable, even though, because they're always going to say like, oh, where's your rings? Like you should be having, because he definitely should have way more than what he has for sure. But yeah, I definitely think he showed up a lot in Cold War. And for Vanguard, I mean, anybody who's been, unless you've been living under a rock, anybody who's peeped YouTube recently knows Scump dominated on
World War II.
On Vanguard, completely took over the beta. Dropping multiple 100 bombs, so many nukes, all kinds of gameplays. And that was with skill base.
Like, yes, with pros, skill base really isn't a thing because they're so much better than the bracket that they're being put in. But as well as they could also be going up against like challengers and like semi-pros and stuff like that. But that's definitely for sure. Guys, if you look back in the recent World War II, which that was a few years ago. That was 2017. But if you look back, like he was a menace on World War II. Like that was one of the games. I think that's one of the games before he started like dipping down. Like that was his plateau, I think. Like I don't think actually not a plateau because he was definitely at higher points, but I think that's where his average was. Is kind of where World War II was at. Like he wasn't the best, but I don't think he was horrible by any means, and he was definitely pretty good.
Yeah, he'll tell you like the main reasoning why like he hated the whole time period of World War II and why he didn't like that whole process
his connection and everything else going on.
Yeah, like his 1-bar connection wasn't great, Then like he felt like he just didn't like the game. Like he felt ordinary and vulnerable, like how they made our soldiers, just how the game designed, like how the same reasons why a lot of people didn't like it, same reasons why he wasn't a huge fan of the game. Also, you had the breakup of the Optic Dynasty during World War II, so that wasn't great for him either.
It's kind of like PTSD this year, in a sense.
But hey, I don't know, man. Going into Vanguard, I don't have high hopes for Vanguard in the sense, but like I don't know anywhere near as much as what Scump knows about like the competitive like behind the scenes. But he seems to be really hyped, not on top of the fact that like it seems like this is going to be a really good year for him. But he seems like he's really hyped up. I think he said that I personally don't agree with this. I think this is kind of a hot take, but he said that Vanguard maps might be some of the best maps of all time, like as far as competitive goes, and I think he's delusional for that. But maybe he knows something I don't. I have no idea, but I think a lot of the Vanguard maps are kind of like amp farm style maps. Like there's 100 different ways to get to the same spot, a lot of angles. It's not like the traditional 3-lane
maps. It's gonna be nonstop trades.
Yeah, and it's like he said, he did at least mention in his video he might be a little bit more biased because he's a submachine gun player. He likes Hotel Royale and stuff like that, where it's like more mixy. It's just, trade after just double, triple, all kinds of crazy, gunfights and just constant action. So I'm sure, like, that's why he likes it. But like, he straight out said, like, he didn't just enjoy it because he felt like it was a good pub map. He actually thinks like some of these maps will be good and competitive, which I personally don't think they're gonna be good and competitive.
I
But
think some
maybe
of them
I'm
have really good potential for S&D, but that's it. Like I watched during the
yeah
beta, I watched nonstop S&D wagers, and there was already being strats like formulated and all that. And I think even some of the bad maps can play really well in S&D, but I think some of the maps that's all they'll be good at.
yeah. Like I just and like with the new mode, like obviously I don't want to talk too much about like that because there'll be way more on the next podcast. I'm not sure which episode we'll touch on it on, but I know
Somewhere in
we'll
the
get to
future.
it somewhere in the near future. So basically, I just want to say briefly, like, I couldn't imagine playing Patrol on like Red Star or something. Like, could you imagine, bro? Like, imagine
That would be
like
horrible.
game 3. Like, people talk about like when they talk about like, oh, bro, this is a horrible map. Like, they dread watching the map. They talk about like Ardennes Forest, capture the flag, stuff like that, where it's like a 7 minute, like a lot of it's like just a standstill, push up, get 2 or 3 down, get trades. Like they just keep having a freaking standstill in the middle of the map. They're just, checking each other repeatedly. And so a lot of people say that's boring to watch. I personally think Patrol on Red Star would be even more boring. Like, yeah, the only thing that would make it more entertaining is it would be quicker, more fast paced because it's there's no spawn delay, there's no, you're gonna have more as far as the objective is concerned. There's more rotation around the map because the objective is moving constantly. So where the gunfights and everything takes place on the map is changing.
You
So
can't even really set
obviously,
up like you can set up ahead of time with trophies, but there's not really like throw 4 trophies and well,
yeah,
obviously there's a trophy GA of how many you can have, but like
I know
throw
what you mean. Yeah.
like post up with trophies, get everything ready to go, and then just sit there for 60 seconds. No, that there's not really gonna be a quote unquote break in setup.
Yeah.
Another question I have. I'm sorry if you have more to say. I apologize.
No,
However,
you're good.
um, with the new roster, because you're well aware of roster mania, and like there can be some changes here and there before, the COD 20 what would it be 2021, 2022? Is it?
I
It starts in
guess.
2021, but it would be 2022, right?
Yeah. Um, I tend to just say like the Vanguard season,
Yeah.
things like that, just so you don't,
You
because
don't
like
really
people will
confuse
get
it.
confused.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, what do you think? Like, since the roster mania and all that, with the roster, like I said, with the roster mania, do you think that the teams are balanced for Vanguard? And what I mean by that is like, you have some players that have played like certain genres of COD. Like they've played World War II and BO4, so like they can be accustomed to those type. Or people that have like played like MW and like BO2 and stuff like that. Do you think that the teams are going to be balanced for Vanguard, or do you think it's going to be one team shines for Vanguard because it's all the people that were god tier at World War II, or at least got the opportunity to play World War II because of like all the rookies that have come in since COVID and since everything that's been happening with online COD?
Um, I think it will be very similar to Cold War, like, because I think Cold War was like very competitive. And I would say a similar thing to what a lot of people say is competitive Call of Duty keeps getting more and more competitive each year. But I would say it definitely is getting more competitive this year than last year. But I would say it's still similar in the sense that I feel like there's 6 teams that could, like, the top 6 teams could beat each other at any point in
Mm-hmm.
time. But I feel like those 2 bottom teams, they're always going to get dominated. Almost like they'll put up a fight, but they're not winning. Pretty much against any of the other like top 6 teams. And then you have like obviously they're in brackets. Like you have your top 2, like your like FaZe and Ultra, I would say, were in like a bracket of their own. And some people would even put FaZe in their own bracket just above everybody else. But I'd say like FaZe Ultra, and then you'd have like 3rd through 6th, and then you'd have like 7 and 8. Those would be like the
Is there only going to be
bracket.
8 teams this year? I could be incorrect, but is there only 8 or is it still 12?
There's only 12. It's not going to be well, there's supposed to be 12. Obviously, we haven't heard anything about the whole Paris spot, but it's like pretty much confirmed with the whole Washington whatever. We haven't heard anything about like an actual roster for that team, so that'll be interesting. We're still gonna have to wait on that. But I mean, as far as like actually like all the teams, there's gonna be 12 teams, but I think there's only gonna be like 6, maybe. I would even say 8. I think 8's pushing it. I would say there's 6 teams that can compete. The top 6 teams. I'd say that the 2 top teams would be, obviously it changes, but like last year it was FaZe and Ultra. I couldn't really tell you. We're not gonna do a power rankings right now. That would take much too long.
We should do a tier list in one podcast. I think that would be a very interesting thing. Is do a tier list of players and tier list of teams and maps and like everything in the CDL, like just a CDL tier list podcast. But that would have to be like a 4-hour podcast one day that we have a lot of time, because that would take a very long time.
But basically, I would say like I said, it's the top 2 teams. So like 1 and 2 is in a bracket of their own, and like they can beat each other. They can beat pretty much anybody under them, and then they go like back and forth, like flip a coin. That's who's gonna win that match, type of thing.
It depends on just who literally gets better timing for the most part. Like.
Then teams 3 through 6, I would say they can all beat each other and they can all beat the teams under them. But I wouldn't say teams 3 through 6 are going to be beating the 1 and 2 teams.
It's possible,
and then it's the same thing with 6 through 12. It's like, you would say like, okay, teams 1 and 2,
I think it would be 6 through 10 in my opinion. I apologize for cutting you off.
Yeah, well,
I think it would be a third bottom bracket of the 2 teams. Although they're not horrible, that the only way they're really winning is if it's against one of the teams, literally the other team in that bracket, or maybe the anomaly where they beat like a higher up. But those are like the 2 teams that are just like staying at the bottom for the majority of the season.
Yeah, like I mean, you'll always have exceptions to the rule. Like look at Gorillas beating FaZe, but like you never know. Ultimately, it's gonna come down to who shows up that day and who plays better COD for that hour or 2 hours, however long the series goes on. But I would say Call of Duty is always going to be there's like 1, 2, maybe 3 top teams. But Call of Duty is getting more and more to where it's like any team can win it. Like look at Minnesota in that Major 5. They came out and they caught fire and they freaking dominated. They were like a top 5, top 6 team. And anybody in that, I would say anyone in the top 6 could come out and win an event, could win a major. But are they going to catch enough fire to be able to have enough tank or gas in the tank to go through and beat, your Atlanta FaZes, your Toronto Ultras, stuff like that.
Look at something that was kind of an anomaly is like, look at Rocker. Look at Rocker versus Ultra on it wasn't champs like the actual day of champs.
It was Major 5.
Yeah, it was a best of 9, and look, Rocker, like, this is how you can, like we were talking of earlier, how if you lose full, like, you need to regain or you're gonna lose. And that's not even like a ego thing. That's like a proven fact. Is look at Ultra. Literally one of the top 2 best teams in the league at this year. And look at Rocker. Rocker didn't perform very bad, but they were not one of the top 2 teams. I believe they won.
They were like 5th or 6th.
Yeah, overall. And look at Ultra. Ultra went up 5-0 or was 4-0. Right?
It was 4-0.
Yeah, they went 4-0. They literally didn't eat, like, some games were kind of close, but they pretty much were uncontested for the first 4 maps, and Rocker just did a complete 180, and, I have different opinions than other people, and some people that I talk to have similar opinions of me, is once they won the first map, I believe it was an S&D. Am I correct that they won the first map that they won? It would be the fifth map. Once they won that S&D with that much, that much momentum, although it sounds very unrealistic and kind of ignorant, I believed and I knew for almost 100% certainty that they were gonna rip 5 straight and like dominate Ultra. And
it's like you said, it was a momentum swing.
Yeah, it was like that was like the swing map, not swing round or anything like that. That was the swing map where they realized, hey, we just dominated them this badly, we can do this. And once they realized that, that's when the momentum shifted. And Ultra, they didn't really get themselves in gear until like the last map or two because they realized, hey, they're starting to creep up. But once they drop a map, you're up 4-1. Like,
you're thinking we're good. We got
like
this.
You're gonna take the foot off the gas pedal. Like, yes, you shouldn't. Even in like, if you're trying to win, in even like a ranked that's not like for money or anything like that. The second that you like toy around with them and like maybe give them a map or give them a couple rounds and start playing sloppy, that's when everything falls apart because it's kind of like a door jam or like a door stopper. Once the wedge is put in, you can't really like push it forward. Like it's going. It can only go forward. It can't really come backward. And once you get that momentum swing, you can at least like get close to keeping up with the team that's beating you, if not have the same momentum or higher. And that's something that Rocker proven, that has proven, and that, in my opinion, was the best reverse sweep of all time, because it was literally in a placement to get placed into the champs bracket. And
it was to win. No, it was to win the whole major. They won Major 5. So like, and with Attach doing all kinds of crazy things, like with the 1v3 running through the artillery barrage, like all kinds of crazy things. Like I'll watch that live. Like all of the crazy things that Attach has done. Like obviously he's gonna be considered the most clutch player of all time. Has to be. But I would say, as far as Minnesota, like all the players on Minnesota, they are sticking together for a reason, because forever and always now they're going to look back on that moment and know, like, we're never out of it. They're never out of a series. They're going to have that confidence to be like, all right, look, we can go down 2-0 or 0-2, however you want to look at it. And we can make the reverse sweep. They're never going to feel like, oh, it's chalked. They're never going to think they're out of it because of them making that one freaking reverse sweep. And I agree with you. I think it was the greatest reverse sweep in Call of Duty for sure. I agree with that.
And although, like, winning champs is, people are going to rave way more about winning champs. In my opinion, this, like I said, people have other opinions as well. I think that reverse sweep is more satisfying and also more, I think it's more, like, more, not closure, but it's more satisfying to the players. And I think a lot of, like, good COD players and, like, people that have played COD for a very long time, I think they really know that was better than actual champs because of what they had to do to even get placed, like, get into the point to be, like, in the bracket for champs, So it's like, although it wasn't champs, it was like a mini version, which is what a major really kind of is, in a sense. And considering the pressure that they were under, I think that was definitely the best. That was the highlight of that year, and probably the highlight of the past couple years in the competitive scene.
Yeah, because I mean, it's also with like champs. It was kind of expected going in. Like, it was Toronto versus FaZe. Not saying Toronto didn't have a chance, they definitely did, but most people expected FaZe to win that going in, so it was just less, there was not any shock value, it was less expected. When people seen Minnesota make that comeback, like nobody really, like everybody was already, a lot of people were counting Minnesota out.
Like
they were leaving
the stage, like
they thought it was over. Like that's what made it way more satisfying, because of like it, nobody expected that to happen. But with FaZe beating Ultra, it's like that's kind of something. It's like I can see that happening.
I bet those who did end up leaving that stage, like they might not even figured it out until a couple days later. But those who left the stage early, They probably are regretting it. They probably hate themselves because of it, because they just missed one of the moments that you potentially will never see again. Depending
Yeah.
on the longevity of COD, considering the way that it's been going in the past few years, you might never see that series ever happen again.
Yeah, it's
That might be
crazy.
something that and the fact of the matter, it might happen again where it's an 0-4 reverse sweep. That could happen again, but a 0-4 reverse sweep from a top six team that's, or not top six, it would be top six, but it would be below the top two, so it'd be you get what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, top 16, but it's like a top 6 team reversing a top 2 team.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Like
say. Like
that's
a
insane.
mid tier to bottom tier team reverse sweeping one of the best teams in the league at that moment.
Yeah,
Like, you're never gonna see that
crazy.
again. I could almost guarantee it. You know,
Yeah,
and it wasn't even that Ultra was like out of sympathy or pity, or it wasn't even like they were really like playing too sloppy. Like, they were playing sloppy, but it,
yeah.
it was mainly them playing sloppy, and then Minnesota
Minnesota
taking
just
advantage
caught
of. They
fire.
capitalized on it and realized, hey, they're making these mistakes. If we keep countering these kids, we can win this, and that's what they did. And
Yeah,
even my boys like Major Maniac, that's my man right there. I love him.
Sandy popped off,
Bro,
bro, for
him,
sure.
Standy, Mike didn't have a bad performance. No one really had a bad performance after the reverse sweep started, and that's what lit the fire, because they realized, like, we gotta start actually hitting our shots. We gotta have everything down. We gotta have the rotations down. The plants down, the coverage, the cross. They have all of that needs to be locked down. And once they kind of had the discussion, look what happened. They won. They won the major five for the reverse sweep comeback.
Yep. All right, Mike. Well, I don't know about you, brother, but I'm about ready to wrap it up. So,
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, this is pretty much the same format that we do in every podcast. Promote
yep.
our socials, kind of explain, like, segue into like what's gonna happen next, but like not really go into detail very much at all, and then do our outro. Just do everything like normal. So guys, without further ado, let's kind of get into it here. If you guys are watching this live, obviously this will be rendered and uploaded, so you'll be able to watch it on my channel if you would like. However, if you are one of the people that are viewing it from the Blind Rage Podcast channel, this will be uploaded every Sunday at between 12 and 5 p.m. depending on the date of record, or the time of recording and everything in that manner, and rendering times, as well as make sure to follow us on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. My boy Nick over here, make sure to catch him out on YouTube on
Yes, sir.
the Blind Nick channel, which he's already at 1,000 subs. So try to get his watch time and his subs up if you guys can. Also, his Blind but Deadly channel, as well as the Blind Rage podcast itself, where we post our podcast every weekly on Sundays between, like I said, 12 and 5. As well as follow his Twitch, to ICTV. He doesn't stream there very often. However, if he does end up streaming there, it'll be a second form of, content creation, content. As well as make sure to follow my Twitter at Fury, or at Fury_Cryptic, and then as well as my YouTube, which is Cryptic Fury or Fury, and then also my Twitch, which is Nextstar MRV, where I've been streaming on like a 15-day streak, except for one day. It was not really a streak because I had to skip a day, but other than that, I've pretty much streaming almost every single day for at least between 2 and 4 hours. Where we play Warzone, Rainbow Six Siege, COD, like anything in that manner, anything FPS related, as well as make sure to drop, depending on what this is on, if this is the stream, make sure to drop a like and a comment on, the stream itself. Make sure to hit that subscribe button with the notification bell, notified of every time we upload it or stream, depending on what channel we're on. And then same thing for the Blind Rage podcast as well. And we are trying to build a new following and new, viewer base. So if you guys are enjoying the content, or at least enjoyed some of the podcast, make sure to drop a like on that. Make sure to subscribe as well. And we'll try to keep you posted if anything new changes, because there's new features where we can post like community posts and things like that. As well as, if you guys are interested, we have donation links in both of our descriptions. That's not required or mandatory in any form or manner. However, if you would like to support the stream or the podcast, feel freely to do so. And I believe, unless I'm missing anything, without further ado, That's on you, Nick, for the outro, because you got the best outro on YouTube.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, like Mike said, we do appreciate all of you guys out here showing the support. We can't thank you guys enough. I know a few people were like, "Yo, you guys are, y'all are actually finally getting around to doing it," and we're hyped. If not, just as hyped, we might even be more hyped than you guys, for all this content and everything that we've been putting out there for you guys. And yeah, just shout out to all you guys in general. But what's up, Mike?
One thing that I want to say before we do end up ending the stream and the podcast here is, like I said, we got to segue everything a little bit. Like I said, in the future episode, which should be episode 3, depending on what happens if we reschedule that for a different topic or manner, we're gonna start having some guests starting next week potentially. And we're going to have times where they can only be in for like an hour or two, and then the last hour or last, 45 minutes or 2 hours or whatever time period it is, that's where we talk about other topics, things that are happening in the real world, what we wanted to touch on in previous podcasts and we haven't had the time to, as well as try to get to know the guests themselves, why they're on the podcast, and, like, why did we choose them as a guest? Like, what do they bring to the table for this whole content situation? And, kind of telling their story and, like, how they've experienced things differently than we have and, like, their perspective on things. Once again, Nick, like I said, I appreciate you being a part of the podcast with us, and I appreciate, being around to actually being able to do this. And, without further ado, if you have anything else to say, let it be known, and then let's get that outro.
All right, boys. So yeah, like I was saying, shout out to all you guys. Let's try to get that subscriber count up a little bit. We're almost at 10 subscribers here on the Blind Rage podcast. So, let's try to make that happen. You guys be sure to let everybody know. Not just by social media. I think so many people think Twitter and Facebook and all these are the only way, guys. Y'all can go out there and tell your friends, spread it by word of mouth, let everybody know, because your boys are going to be out here doing their thing. We're going to be freaking trying our best. I almost wanted to say we're guaranteed going to be here, but I don't want to guarantee you guys and lie to you.
Due to, like, emergencies and whatnot.
Yeah, things might happen. Something could come up. So I'm not going to guarantee it, but for the most part, it'll be streamed here on Mike's channel on Saturday nights, and should be posted Sunday afternoons between 12 and 5. So, yeah, guys, appreciate the support. Shout out to you guys. If y'all did manage to watch the whole thing, y'all be sure to leave us a comment down below. And I want to try this out, Mike, okay? I want to try doing this. I want to see how many people actually watched up until this point. I want you guys to comment down below CDL. If you guys commented CDL down low, we will know that you guys were loyal supporters and y'all watched all the way up until the end. So yeah, comment CDL if you guys are still watching. Shout out to you guys. And like I said, let's try to get that subscriber count up. Y'all be sure to drop a like for your boys. And as always, guys, God bless.